Welcome, Bastronauts. This is Teal's Bass Galaxy, an endless dimension of fishing legends and degenerates connecting through raw, real, in-person conversations and stories. No, this is not your average fishing podcast. There's no rules. There's no limits. 3, 2, 1, blast off. This podcast is intended for mature audiences. Viewer discretion is advised. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. Teal's Bass Galaxy is now offering intergalactic merchandise. That's right, we got apparel now, baby. Check out our website. We got a variety of apparel, hats, bucket hats, sweatshirts, t-shirts, all the finest goods. So stop on our website, tealsbassgalaxy.com, click on the apparel tab, and start looking good, baby. Attention all Bastronauts. This podcast is supported by the Bass Galaxy's title sponsor, Waypoint Angler Supply, the Midwest's new landing pad for hardcore anglers just like you and me. If you're looking for the sneaky goods you can't find anywhere else, look no further. Waypoint Angler Supply has the largest offering of JDM tackle in the Midwest, and they are right here in Minnesota on Lake Minnetonka. This is truly a place every bass fisherman in Minnesota needs to visit because we finally have a tackle shop in the state that's as dreamy as the ones you find down south. And the staff at Waypoint Angler Supply understands the various needs of us anglers, which is why you'll find the selection there so enticing. Ross and the folks at Waypoint Angler Supply are passionate about carrying the right stuff, providing an authentic customer experience, and they listen to the anglers. And it doesn't end at JDM baits. They stock all the top U.S. brands, as well as local Minnesota brands like Vocelka Fishing and Customs, Arsenal Fishing, Bait Lab Custom Swim Baits, All Terrain Tackle, Bagley Northland, Outcast Tackle, and more. So stop into their store on Lake Minnetonka or visit their website, waypointanglersupply.com. That's waypointanglersupply.com. Use the code GALAXY20 to save 20% on your next tackle binge. The Bass Galaxy is also supported by Vocelka Fishing and Customs, Supreme Lending Dream Team, Lake Country Insurance Services, My Wedge Motor Support, Supreme Lure Company, just north of Memphis, Barbecue and Catering. Thank you.
Waypoint, they're new.
Yeah.
And to me, it seems like it's very heavily loaded with anglers. The guys that work there are actually anglers, not just people they hire off the street to sell stuff. And then I know it's a tough balance between you only can have so much inventory, you only have so much shelf space, but they're really catering to the guys that are coming in there and saying, hey, this is what I'd like to see. Can you get this in? Where a lot of companies would be like, I don't know if it's too much work to get it in, or it's just
that's totally what it is.
Too many phone calls, or they don't know where to go, and they're just, everyone wants to just get their same stuff from the same place, and it's easy. And
well, it's spreadsheet driven, right? Big business, spreadsheet driven. It's right. Like, well, these SKUs sell the best, so we're going to cut out everything else, and we're going to buy more of these and sell them,
Well, and it's no secret, CSI Big Rock is like the main supplier for all these tackle stores for the basic stuff.
Yep.
So, if you go into Thorne Brothers, if you pull back an item till you can see the back where their restock tag is, CSI Big Rock. Capra's CSI Big Rock. This stuff they're carrying at Waypoint is not coming from CSI Big Rock.
No. That'd be a prime example of a bait that you can't even get that
so
I called them about like a month ago.
Chatterbait spinnerbait.
This is, that grass piece. So you can't even get this. I didn't even think they could get it. Ross calls me 3-4 weeks later. He's like, yo, I got some. How many do you want? I was like, I'll take 2 halves, 2 3/4. And it's like, it's not just me. Anybody can call them and say, I'm looking for this. They deliver. That's their motto. That's important to them. If you're on Tonka, they'll deliver it to the boat ramp. Yeah. That's kind of like the coolest, unique thing. But anyway.
Yeah, and a lot of it is, you know, I'm sure when you call a company like this, in order to get a profitable price, you're going to have to buy a decent amount of inventory. Well, they might just be like, hey, let's get 20 of these in and see if the guys like them. Then we can push for, you know, trying to make money on them. But
that's, I think, what it is. A lot of times, even if they have to pay full price to find it, to get it, at the end of the day, they servicing anglers is their motto. Now, all of a sudden, we're having a different conversation here, right? When we're talking tackle and specialty tackle that caters to the, you know, us 5%ers or 10%ers.
Every time they put a video out, it's something you've never seen before. Like, where did this come from? You know, it's baits I've never even heard before. But
they got that test tank now, dude, which is like,
yeah, I seen they had that minnow bait in there
test
the other
tank
day.
in here. We could like play with baits, and you could like show me all your wizardry.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, though, we do need to get like enough about that. It's an honor to have you, Arnie.
Thank you.
Honestly, congratulations. You're the Angler of the Year for Champs Tour, and I guess it's been only a matter of time for that. I guess have you won Angler of the Year before? I feel like
not in
I
this
might have
series.
mistaken, but
it's been one of my goals since I started. I can tell you when the Champions Tour started, I tried to get in it the first year because numbers fishing is my way of fishing. I'm not a guy that can sit out on a hump for 5 hours and get 4 bites and hope that they're all big ones. I would rather catch 60 fish during the day and hope that I get 5 good ones, which for me, it's a game of averages. It's just like hockey. If you shoot the puck at the net enough times, you're going to get it in there a few times. So for me, I called Scott right away and said, sign me up. And he's like, well, hold on. You know, it's going to be an invite only type deal. And I thought, oh, crap, you know, I'm not well enough known to even get in this thing. And so I earned my way in the first year. They had the team trail had a couple guys that got to get in it.
That. You have to.
And then
that's how it started. I forget that.
Yep.
Or invite.
So it started
invite.
Invite was your Seth Fighters, you know, Capras, Ravelings. And I understand completely why he did that. It was all revenue driven as far as if I can get all the top names to get in this circuit, the sponsors will come, and that's exactly what happened. And then it's taken off from there.
Great. Yeah.
So I got in. Mark Schutz was running full throttle tournaments at the time. He had a qualifier on Waconia.
Oh, sure.
Well, Waconia is one of my better lakes, and I thought, I'm going to go to that, and I'm going to get in. My wife says, well, how do you know that? I said, well, I haven't finished lower than 5th on that lake in probably 10 years. So I'm like, I'll get in. And I took second to the guy I always took second to. American Bass Anglers, we fished there 20 times. I'd take second every time pretzel.
You used to run ABA a little bit.
I did I ran it for a couple of years.
So I think you understand. I don't think a lot of people understand what it's like to be a tournament director, and it's not like
the guys.
To me, it seems like it'd be a really painful thing to do.
So the guys that just show up to fish have no clue on what's actually required. As far as permits go, you need a permit from the DNR. So let's take Minnetonka. You're going to fish a tournament on Minnetonka. You need a permit from the DNR. You need a permit from the Lakeshore Association, which is the tough one to get. You need a sheriff's permit. And on Tonka, you need a city permit for wherever you're weighing in at. Well, if there's 50 tournaments a year out there, besides Denny's or like the Blackfish, all these little small circuits, none of them have all the permits. And what guys that just show up to fish don't realize is the amount of time, paperwork that goes into that. So like when I ran the ABA, you'd get all the permits. The ABA supplied you with an umbrella policy because you're supposed to have insurance also. And
how much insurance?
$1 million balloon.
Oof. What's that run a guy a year typically?
I don't know because I didn't pay it, but I gotta imagine it's probably $1,000 for the season. But when permits were $60 a piece. So now you're buying permits in August, September of the previous year. You're dishing out $900 to $1,000 out of your pocket that you're sitting on till the following year. And then what we did is we charged $5 a guy to cover the permit fees. And then once I got my money back for permits, we stopped charging it.
Sure.
But tournament's over, you're supposed to send a document to the DNR. How many largemouth were caught? How many smallmouth were caught? How many were weighed alive? How many were released alive? A couple other questions. You send that to the DNR. Then you got to send paperwork to the ABA. How many anglers showed up? Who got paid? Who gets what check? How many fish were caught? They want to know weather conditions and winning patterns. And so, there's a lot of legwork after the tournament's over.
What is the Minnesota DNR like to work with?
The Minnesota DNR is pretty good.
Sure.
I never really had an issue with them.
Not even when they spray the grass?
Well, I don't prefer that, but I call them the DNR.
I hate when they do that. Actually, that's not always the DNR that does that, but I feel like they allow the permits for that to be done.
I think what I witnessed last year on the whitefish chain was a company that people that got money are hiring to come spray the weeds in front of their dock. And I took a video of this, and I bet you I was 200 yards away from this boat. Two guys pull up.
What lake was this again?
Whitefish.
Damn.
And I was just on a small bay off the main lake on Whitefish down on the south end.
Yeah.
This boat pulls up. It's an aluminum boat. Two guys in paper suits. So that was my first inkling is these guys are dealing with chemicals, right? The guy takes out a 2-inch diameter hose and just starts pumping stuff into the lake. And I can smell it immediately. So they leave, I drive down there and I look and there's just this huge aqua-colored cloud. And I look in front of this dock and there's a weeds at the neighbor's house on this side, the neighbor's house on this side, but this guy has no weeds. So I'm sure he's doing it. Oh yeah. So I'm sure they probably do it a few times a summer, every 3-4 weeks or whatever. I don't know if that has anything to do with the DNR.
Really?
You would think they're supposed to have a permit, but it's hard to believe the DNR is going to give permits to just dump chemicals randomly
100%.
where they see fit.
Well, dude, it just seems like why is that? Because I don't know. Maybe I feel like it's horrible for the fish. Horrible for the fishing. So I don't catch shit around that.
I don't know if you saw the post I made. I made a post and I said, these are the same people that will tell you, it doesn't hurt the fish. Your kids can swim in it. It's not, if the fish are there, you can eat them. It's not going to hurt you. But then why does the guy distributing the chemicals need to wear a Tyvek suit?
Yeah, and why is there warning
rubber
labels
gloves,
on the chemicals
goggles,
that they use?
Right.
Like the chemicals they use it's liquid Roundup.
Well, yeah, I'm sure it's an Aquacide.
You don't tell your kids to go, hey, Dad just fertilized the lawn with Dad just round up the lawn. Go dip your cheeseburger in the lawn. Make sure
Yeah, no,
they get poisoned.
I'm not a huge fan of the DNR. Just the way things are run in our state. I think I call them do nothing right. If you look at the deer population, I'm a hunter. If the deer population is in horrible shape, anywhere
I can't speak on that, but I've heard that.
Anywhere north of the cities.
A lot of people have a lot to say about that with the wolves and stuff up north. So you hunt up north with the wolves?
Hackensack, just south of Leech.
Shit. So yeah, you got wolves up there.
Yeah, we hear them every night, every morning.
And what have you seen that do to the deer up there?
You used to see 10, 12 deer a day, and you'd take your pick on which, what you want. And if you didn't see one that day, you'd see some tomorrow, so you didn't have to shoot anything. There's 6 guys in my hunting party, plus 2 of my friends hunt on the other side of the lake. So there's 9 of us for 7 days. I seen 1 deer the first day. I shot that. It's the only deer I saw all week. And my group got 4 deer. And we shot all the deer we seen.
How long did that progression happen? And I guess from seeing that many to that few, and I guess because there's a lot of people say the snow last winter too, like the winter last year, there was a lot of deer that starved to death winter.
That's a good possibility. We reduced the numbers last winter, but
I would say something, right?
It's been taking, I'd say in the last 5 years, it's really gone downhill. But the zone I hunt in has been the best zone in the state as far as numbers. I mean, they shoot 130 to 150,000 deer a year.
Wow.
So where we hunt, it's state forest, and normally opening morning, that's all you hear is bang, 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 bang. I think I heard 2 shots the first day. The forest was empty. There was nobody in it. There was no hunters anywhere. Normally you're driving out to your stand and you see a wheeler go by, or a guy walking through the woods, and we kind of have our section where we hunt, and it's kind of a gentleman's agreement. Like, this is the area we hunt. We're not going to come in your area. Yeah. And we got names. We got the Pines guys, they hunt over here. We got the Bemidji guys, they hunt over there. So everyone kind of has their area, but this year we didn't see anybody. Our group was the only one. There was the neighbor to our property was out there for a couple days. He's the only other one we saw.
Sure.
And he got a deer the first day, but same thing. He was like, I shot it because I didn't think I'd see another one.
Yeah.
But I had cameras out for 3 weeks. I think I had 2 different bucks on my camera at nighttime, and then 1 small doe, and that's it. And there was years where wolves, yeah, lots of wolves.
So how many wolves compared to deer now would you see on cams versus?
They're probably 3 to 1.
Whoa.
And they run in packs of, from what we see, probably 6 to 10.
And technically, you are not allowed to kill them.
No.
Unless you are in self-defense. So it's really, because it's like, that's what I never understood about the grizzly bear thing or the wolf thing. It's like, how can you prove that that thing wasn't trying to kill you? I mean, that thing is a threat. If that thing is like even anywhere near me and I have the chance and I feel threatened, like,
yeah, I think I would shoot one.
I'm going to take it out.
Deal with the consequences
because I'm not
later,
ready to get attacked by a wolf, dude.
Right.
You see me? This is not, I'm not built for that.
And there's no sense in running because they're so fast,
That's just it. They're way faster than me.
Not got outrun one, but.
Yeah, I'd need a spaceship, dude.
But I know a couple years ago we shot a doe and we didn't find it that night. So that we spent the next day looking for it some more. And so it was shot at, right before dark. Thing only ran 150 yards, but when we searched, we just kind of do a circle. We didn't quite, we're about 20 yards short of finding it. The next morning, half of it was gone. They had eaten, they found it. They had started in the back and eaten all the way up past the ribcage, and it was like, I mean, what do you do at this point? So we took it back to camp, and we were like, well, we'll try to save the front quarters of it, but something to do with the wolves eating it. Like the next day, the meat was turning green, so we ended up getting rid of it. But
yeah,
it's the same with the bears. When I first started hunting up there, my buddies,
blackies,
bears, no experience. My buddy's like, yeah, walk down this trail 150 yards, the stand will be on your left, and I'm like, are there bears here? Yeah. I said, well, what if I'm in the tree and a bear starts climbing up it? Can I shoot it? And they're like, no. I'm like, no, I'll shoot it. We'll bury it in a hole. Like, I'm not going to wait till it's in my stand. Like,
yeah, like, I understand
if
it's 4 trees away.
Yeah, leave it.
Let it I'm going to call you guys. Yeah. Probably coax it away. But if it's in the same tree, you don't have a lot of time.
Yeah, and I think we spent 4 years up in the Two Harbors area. We leased a piece of property just for something different for a while.
That's especially wolvy, dude.
We seen, I think we shot 3 deer up there in 4 years. And if you saw one, it was like, because they're just running the whole time. You don't ever see them, just kind of feeding around.
Because they're not safe.
No, they're used to being chased everywhere they go. And
well, I went to school in Duluth, and the deer in the city in Duluth is insane.
Yeah.
The wolves drove all these deer down to the point where, like, in Duluth, you can go freaking pet a deer if you want to.
Yeah.
And you're like, hi, buddy.
Yeah, and
you can kill them, like, from your, I forget what kind of permit you need. You need a special permit, but you got to city hunt, which that was like something I found out about.
Usually they do the same thing in the city in like the parks and stuff. Usually you have to pass a proficiency test with your bow.
I would assume.
They don't want just some guy out whipping arrows all around, but they give you a pie plate.
Old lady dressed in brown.
Yeah. So no, it was really bad up there. Like, I mean, you'd get a camera shot and there'd be a dozen wolves on it. And that's the only time I actually felt, nervous leaving the stand every day. I carried a handgun the whole time I hunted up there. Because with a rifle, if you're approached by 5-6 wolves, if they're 10 feet away, there's nothing you're going to do with a rifle.
Right.
So I carried a handgun, and We only had one time where a buddy of mine called and said, "Hey, you guys got to come and get me. Like, I can't get out of the stand. There's 20 of them around me. Like, you guys got to come out here." So we all drove out there and kind of pushed him off, and then he got down and he was just like, "What in the heck? Like, they're just running all around me."
Dude, thank God I'm in a tree if they're wolves. Like,
yeah,
and my phone works. Like,
yeah.
Can you imagine if your phone didn't work and you're in that tree around the wolves?
I think I would sit there until my friends came. Like,
I think I would shit my pants, and then I would make sure they knew it. I'd let them wolves start smelling that.
Yep. No, it's
I don't know how he didn't start blasting a couple. Like, get the fuck out of here.
It's a tough deal, but, you know, the DNR, like what they've done with Mille Lacs, and I understand that the Indians they have more control than we do, but
there's I think it's not even necessarily the local, you know, you have a lot of native tribes pulling from different places, and I think there's a lot of complexity there, along with a lot of management.
You even have Wisconsin tribes that come over and net the lake. And,
Yep.
And I mean, I think it's such an easy fix. Like, net the lake all you want, but can we do it after spawn? I mean, let the walleyes procreate.
Yeah, post-spawn netting.
Ah,
yeah, what happened?
I think
what's wrong with the post-spawn netting bite? I don't mind that.
I think the lake would explode if they would do that.
I'm all about right to netting, but yeah, I agree. You know? Maybe post-spawn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a big push right now for catching bass year-round. You know, if I'm not fishing a tournament, I'm not going to go around the shoreline and pull bass off beds just for the fun of it. You know, it's fun.
Oh, I agree. The only reason I will is I won't jump into a tournament if it's a bed tournament even. I will fish it if it's a trail, you know?
Yeah, like if you're locked into fishing it for a series.
I won't jackpot a bed.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're
if
you're driving up to Woolman Lake during the spawning season, so you can just go jack a bunch of 6-pound smallies. They say it's not detrimental to the fish, but I don't know how it can't be.
For me, it's just not that fun.
Well, especially smallmouth. There's not
you're in a 4-foot circle.
To that. Yeah.
I don't think so unless you can't see them and it's deep.
Yeah.
Like, but I've never floggered them. But like to me, that's just structure fishing. At that point, you're fishing a crater next to whatever they're sitting next to. You know what I mean? But sight fishing, there's an art to sight fishing for sure.
Much more with largemouth
for
than
sure.
With smallmouth.
And we don't really get that luxury up here. But to me, that's like because smallmouth, bed fishing, smallmouth, unless you have wind or weird conditions that make maybe that more challenging.
Right.
It's a practicing tournament, essentially.
Right. Yeah, I know with largemouth, I mean, I enjoy doing it in a tournament setting, like trying to get one to bite, but it's always how much time are you going to spend on this fish? And then a lot of guys have problems like, if it's 4 feet of water, is that a 3-pounder? Is that a 5-pounder? Like, it's tough to tell.
Yeah.
You spend an hour on it and catch it, and it's 3.5 pounds. You're like, I don't even need this fish. Like,
I'm horrible at that.
Yeah, it's tough for me to judge.
Catch some of them.
Yeah.
You catch enough of them, then it helps. But I seem to, if I go to a lake that's full of small fish, I'll start to like a 2 3/4. I'll think's 3 or something, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because you've been catching pounders all day.
And if I go to Big Stone and then I go to a different lake, I'm like, it's like 1.5 pounds. Yeah. And it's like 3 pounds.
Yeah, and I think we just hit Big Stone at the wrong time because
totally.
I heard just phenomenal stuff about that lake, and then, you know, I had fished leech.
It was good.
I had fished leech the week before that, and I had a guy. You know, I was talking to him. He's like, "Have you ever been there?" I said, "No." He's like, "Oh, here's what you got to do. You just go do this."
Where? Big Stone?
On Big Stone. Yeah. So I went down there. I called him. I go, that game plan's out the door. He said, "Why?" I said, "There's weeds to 13 feet of water to the surface."
And scummy.
So everything
was he saying the offshore rock deal?
Yeah, and I said, so you...
Because we didn't talk about that because there's offshore rock from...
Right, so you find one of those, and the thing's just totally encompassed in weeds. Not going to be good, but I rolled into town there, stopped at that little bait store in town, and the guy's like, "I don't even know why you guys are here." I said,
"What do you mean?
Why would you say that?" Said, "You know, it's good for the community. You get 80 guys down here, and they're eating and drinking and spending money." And I go, "You're the only tackle shop in town. You're going to make a ton of money this week." And he goes, "You don't need any baits this week." I was like, "Why?" He's like, "You guys aren't going to catch anything." I'm like, "I just saw some kids weighed a 4-pound bag."
Yeah.
And he goes, here's how the lake works. It is a phenomenal fishery in the spring. Once the weeds come, they're to the surface. Can't even hardly fish anything.
Spreads them out.
The fish are just wherever they want to be. The whole lake is cover at that point.
Yep.
August rolls around. The weeds start to die. September, October, this lake is on fire again.
Yep.
Because it positions the fish to what structure is available.
That is a championship lake in
In the fall.
September.
Yeah.
Because it would spread out. You could catch big ones anywhere. It's
Yep.
not spotty.
Yeah,
And they're schooled up and
so when we
shallow,
got
deep,
there,
you name it.
I'm idling out from the boat launch, like, where do the weeds end?
They don't.
They don't.
No.
And then it was like,
And they're scummy, so you can't throw
Yep.
anything you want to throw.
and that was like 3/4 of the way up of the lake. And then the scummy stuff quit, but then the algae bloom had started up there. So it's like,
Now your reel's blue.
yeah, so it's like, I don't know what you're going to fish, but I spent, I
Yeah,
think
what was your deal on Big Stone? I'll tell you what I did.
I was there for 5 days in practice, and I caught 3 fish.
Wow.
And I went into that saying if I can finish halfway in the, because what I was hearing was nobody was catching any, and I'm like, well, if you can put 15, 18 pounds on the scale and finish in the middle of the pack, I'm leaving here happy. And then the last day, I was going down the shoreline, and I found a log laying in the water. And about halfway from the end of the log to shore, there was about a 4-foot circle with no weeds. And I flipped a jig in there, and I saw a bass just go, boom, grab it. And I thought, wow. Then I kept going down the shoreline. This is the last day of practice. I find another log. Fish it, fish it, fish it. Nothing. I come to another laydown that's got a little clear spot. Boom. And I thought, they're in the weeds looking at that clear spot, just waiting for something. Because when I put my lure in there, boom. And so I literally put the trolling motor on high, and I probably went down 4 miles of shoreline on the one side and 4 miles of shoreline on the other side, and just looking. Oh, here's a dock full of weeds. Nothing. 2 houses down. Oh, look at, this is a T. Out on the end of this T, this one side's got about a 4-foot circle where there's a little open spot. And I just started marking those. And I started the morning busting off like a 6.5. First cast. Pulled around. It was a T dock, but the opening was up towards shore more. So I pulled around this pontoon, nose in, tailing down. First cast. Pink, set the hook, and my line's just pulling. And it jumps on the other side of the dock and cuts my line. And I thought, that's going to suck. And the kid in my boat goes, well, there's a lot of day left. And I go, you don't understand. I only got 3 bites the whole week I was here. That's, those are going to be tough to come by. But then I started hitting those waypoints with them clear spots. Every single one, I caught fish on them. And I think I was in like 7th after the first half. Then I wanted to run way down the lake. And they said, oh, keep an eye on your phones. That storm's coming. I'm like,
yeah.
What are they talking about? It's bluebird skies. I pulled my phone up and I thought,
ooh.
Oh, yeah. But it looked like it was going to just blow right by quickly. So I said, well, I'm just going to run straight across.
It did north. South,
No.
It seemed to linger a little more.
No, I ran straight across. And I only had 3 waypoints. And there was guys on all 3 of them. So I just started running down the shoreline. And I thought, I'll wait 20 minutes and then we'll avoid this storm.
Yeah.
Well, it was after like 30 minutes. I'm like, I can't just waste my time here. You got to make something happen. So I started running down the lake, and I got to those first sets of islands, and it went from slick calm to 4-foot rollers and just downpouring. And I think it lasted an hour.
Yeah.
And
at least.
I finally got around to the backside of this island. There was a guy there complaining that they let us go. And I go, here's the alternative. The way the waves were blowing is into the shore where everyone's boats were parked against them boulders.
Yeah, it's not
I
good
said
either.
we would have had 40 totaled boats.
You have to move your boat if it's...
Yeah, your
in an
boat.
it's about safety. And for us, we ran north because our kids were cold.
Yeah. Well, my kid had a Adidas windbreaker. I said, hey,
We
I'm
didn't
gonna
run
put my
north to
rain
get
gear
an
on.
advantage.
Right.
We ran north because the wind was bucking, kids were cold. The one kid kid was so cold, one dude threw his just forfeited his second half.
Really?
Are you ready to reel in your next home purchase or refinance? Supreme Lending's Dream Team can help guide you through the entire mortgage process, from pre-qualification to closing. They have a wide variety of home loan programs in their tackle box, including down payment assistance and first-time homebuyer options. Just ask me. I trusted Aaron Dagas, a bass fisherman just like you and me, and Supreme Lending's Dream Team to help finance my first home. Contact Aaron Dagas and the Dream Team today by scanning the QR code or giving them a call at 763-326-0677. That's 763-326-0677. Did I catch a 7 in there? Or visit their website, aarondages.supremelending.com. That's AARONDAEGES.supremelending.com. It's been confirmed. Aliens from another planet have landed on Earth. Sources say there's been 2 confirmed landing points for these extraterrestrial beings, one being Japan, and also, unexpectedly, in Minnesota at Waypoint Angler Supply, a local tackle shop on Lake Minnetonka. With the ever-expanding universe, it's no surprise that there are other planets out there that also share our love for the sport of bass fishing. And to Earth's surprise, this latest visit came from extraterrestrial fishermen light years away and many innovations ahead when it comes to fishing equipment. Some hypothesize these beings came from the planet of Naboo, matching up with Mayan folklore dating back thousands of years with fishing equipment ahead of their time. It has been confirmed they left things never seen before by an Earth-born bass. Waypoint Angler Supply is the premier space station in the bass galaxy and has tackle that could previously only be found in Japan or the planet of Naboo. The Waypoint ship is full, but we don't know when the astronauts from Naboo will be back. So hurry in to Waypoint Angler Supply today and stock up on that Area 51 Planet of Naboo JDM good before your buddy is whooping that sweet ass of yours. Stop into their store on Lake Minnetonka or visit their website, waypointanglersupply.com. That's waypointanglersupply.com. Use the code GALAXY20 to save 20% on your next tackle binge. Aliens are real. Thank you. Yeah, and he ran back the ramp. I don't know what I would have done in that situation. Like, I think about, it's the first event of the year, and I'm Arnold Helgerson.
Yeah.
And look at you. You're the angler of the year for the Champions Tour. Let's say Big Stone, your marshal, gets hypothermia, no rain gear, cold as dirt, and says, take me back to the ramp. What do you do?
I think I would.
I think I would too, but
when I got
you don't
back,
know what that's going to cost you till the end, and then how do you feel?
No, I think when I get back to the ramp, I tell whoever's running the tournament, I need another marshal, like right now. Like,
that makes sense. Yep.
Pick somebody.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't care who it is.
Glenn.
Glenn. I'll show them how to use the app or
right.
whatever, but no, I'm not just going to quit the tournament. But
that makes a lot more sense. I agree.
But that I think just the way that lake sits, the directional orientation of that lake, when the wind picked up like that, there's nowhere to go.
Yeah.
You know, so, and I had heard some guys ran all the way up. Storm never even hit there. So when they said get to shore because of the storm, they're all going, well,
why do we need to go to shore?
What's going on here? Like, what are they talking about? But that thing got to the lake, and it was like it just blew up and stalled out.
Yeah.
And sat there. And my kid was a little nervous. This kid was picked up from the Colonel at a gas station in South Dakota. Parents said, yeah, take him. So he shows up. He's got no rain gear. He's wearing shoes with socks on, so his feet are soaked. And I got, 4 inches, 5 inches of water in the boat.
That's the best advice for any marshal that might be listening right now. Is
rain gear.
Rain gear.
I don't care if it's going to rain or not. I'm very tempted to buy
a fish. If you fish and you want to bass fish, you want to fish tournaments, let alone marshal them. Rain gear, dude.
And I'm not talking stop at the Holiday and grab some rain gear. Like
get you some blackfish.
Spend your money.
Whatever Arnie uses, but
yeah,
I'm getting some blackfish
Yeah, I've got a striker jacket and
Make good shit.
and
Get you a nice rain jacket.
I've been through the years where you go to a sporting goods store and they got a discount and you buy them and it's like halfway through the season, like the third time they've gotten wet, you're wet.
Oh yeah.
And once you're wet, it's hard. I equate it to if you have to pee. If I
Right.
have to pee, I'm going to pee right now because the longer it goes on that you have to pee, the more that's all you think about. Like, I really have to go to the bathroom.
For sure.
And now you're not concentrating on the task at hand. And I think it's the same with rain gear. Is once you're soaked like that, if you start getting cold, your hands are cold, now you can't feel your rod as well.
Can't focus.
I mean, pricing on everything has gotten out of control. I mean, you buy a good set of rain gear, you're going to spend $600
Probably, yeah.
for a
Yeah.
top end.
And it's like if you can spend, 100, 300, right? And it's
Right.
going to last you about a season.
Yep.
And those, better ones are going to last you 3-4 if you take good care of them, use
Right.
the,
But I
some
think
of them last even longer. A couple
the-
of my blackfish ones.
The first time you're in one of those monsoons,
Yeah.
you're going to think this is money well spent.
Totally, dude. Because I'm not a guy who likes to get off the lake either. Like,
No.
I'm like, well,
I always laugh about this. My wife thinks that, she's super supportive on what I do. She's super proud of me. But she thinks when I go out of town for a week, I'm just hanging with my buddies and at the bar.
Isn't that
I mean,
weird?
it's not me.
no.
And I said, no, I don't. Like, you should really come one time just to see, like, how. And I tell her the same
Come
thing
sit in the
about.
boat one day.
Tell her
Yeah.
the same thing about hunting. I'm like, come sit in the tree stand at an hour before the sun comes up and just listen to the forest come alive. The birds start to chirp, the squirrels move around. Said, you should
Wow,
come
Arnie.
fishing with me sometime.
That's the most beautiful thing you've ever said.
It's fantastic. Whether you shoot a deer or not, that's what I enjoy. But if it's a body of water I've never been to, like the first time I went to Vermilion,
Yeah.
I was on the water as the sun's coming up, and I was on the water when the sun was going down. And I'm eating ham sandwiches, peanut butter and jelly sandwich. We're not eating
Damn, that-
steaks at the local
You're a
tavern.
little better
you know?
than me. You're from the food department.
And,
I forget the sandwiches sometimes.
And so I'm like, if to succeed at this level, it's like another job.
Against these guys, dude? I
Yeah.
feel like it is because I still feel like I'm not working hard enough. And I feel like I just
Yeah, and
Trying.
this is one of the
can't
things I
force it, though.
really wanted to talk about is
Yeah.
when these younger kids start, I really think they need like a 3-year orientation plan.
I'm on it.
You don't. When I started this tour, how long has it been? 7?
See, I've been fishing. This will be my 4th year.
It's
So-
probably been like 7 or 8 years.
And I feel like I got that 3-year thing you were just talking about
Yep.
where I'm like, I feel good going into next year, but I'm not real happy with how I've done. And it was definitely, it's a ultimate adjustment.
Yeah, and so for me, my first year, I look at the roster and I go, well, these are all the guys that you idolize, Capra, Raveling, Liferman, Seth Fighter. It's like
Yeah.
you look at the names that were on the roster and then you put your boater in the water with these guys and it's like, do you belong here? Well, I win the first tournament I go to with the Champions Tour. So it was
Really?
like,
You did.
I did.
Was that whitefish?
I won the whitefish chain. And who's in my boat? Big time Charlie Wright.
Okay.
So I know he went to college, was very successful. He fished a Champions Tour for 1 season. He got smoked and he gave up. There's only a limited amount of people that fit this niche of every fish counts. And I think the ones that do are like Mark Quartz, fishing guide.
Yeah. That style of angle. Yeah. Okay. Just fishy guys, you're saying.
Yep.
Kind of thing.
Um,
You're not, so you're saying even different than good 5-fish anglers.
Right. I think the ones that struggle the most are the ones that are hardcore 5-fish anglers. Because
It's interesting.
you
say
have to
that.
break the water down completely differently, especially with the lake split, not knowing.
Yeah.
And I think the guys that do good right away are the guides. Like Keller. He's a guide. His job on the water as a guide is to catch his customers' fish.
Right.
Not necessarily put them on the best fish they ever caught in their life. Catch fish.
Right.
And I think that's why he's adapted well.
Well, it's a hell of a battle between you two this year, and that was pretty unreal, right down to the wire, dude.
This is the third time this has happened to me. Like, so I fished that whitefish tournament. I qualified through Laconia, made their invitational, they called it, I believe. I go up to whitefish and I practiced for 2 days. And I thought, okay, I think this will work for me. I get a call from Matt Thompson. How'd it go? So I know Matt Thompson through another friend of mine that they work together with. So,
well, you both are kind of live around near Rush, right?
Yep.
Because, I mean, you guys, I was looking at both of you as guys who were going to do pretty well.
I didn't even practice.
Probably didn't need to, Arnie.
I didn't.
No. When you know the lake, it was better that you didn't.
So I get a call from Thompson. How did it go? I said, I did. I think I got like four areas that are going to be really good. And he's like, well, what parts of the lake they are in? And I said, well, everything this side of the Narrows. And he goes, well, they're going to split the lake in half. I go, what do you mean? He's like, well, they're going to split the lake in half somehow, east-west, north-south, at the Narrows.
This was that first tournament on
First
whitefish?
tournament. So he's like, you're only going to be able to fish that area half the day. So holy crap. So I go up there and I spend 2 more days the week before the tournament sleeping in my truck at the state park.
Hell yeah.
And fish the other half of the lake. And the way they split the lake, I would have been totally hosed on the second half of the day. But I finished that tournament and I was in the lead, so you think. And then you hand your paperwork in. My wife calls and she says, did you win? I said, well, I think so. It was between me and, I'm trying to think who finished second that time.
No, he finished second the first year I fished whitefish.
Who's the other dock guy?
I'm trying to think. I feel like I might know who you're talking about.
School teacher guy.
Jeff Boshart.
Yep. So he finishes in second. And it wasn't really a huge gap. So I told my wife, I said, well, we don't really know because they have to go through the paperwork. The paperwork that's the Bible in these tournaments. Because your guy could be entering weights and put a fish in twice. Or he misses the fish. Or he puts the weight in wrong. So they...
Bad cell service or guy has T-Mobile or whatever.
Yep. So they go back and they compare what's on there to the paper. And ultimately the paper is what matters.
Yep. Final.
And my weights never changed. I ended up winning that tournament, but I've never been so nervous in my life. And so I'm a very emotional guy when it comes to stuff like this.
You don't strike me as a super emotional guy.
I am.
You're pretty.
Man, I cry watching movies. Like
to me, I feel like you're like ex-military. Like
nope.
that you're pretty like I haven't seen you smile yet, like a real bright for me.
Yeah, I don't smile a lot because I'll just tell you, I'm missing some teeth from when I was younger. I didn't take care of my teeth, so.
You seen Willie?
No.
Oh, he's missing one. Fucking gone.
Well, it's
I think you look good, buddy. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
No, it's totally fine.
I didn't mean to call you. That would make me.
So
would make me do the same thing.
I wear a partial most of the time.
Oh, you do?
I do, but.
See, hockey players just embrace that shit.
Look at Bufflin got one right in the front.
Dude, I wish I had one missing.
That guy's got more money than God. He can just go get an implant put in, but he don't care.
It's a badge of honor.
So that tournament was nerve-wracking, but then that got me to the championship.
Yep.
Pokegama. First time I was ever there. And I think I got a little cocky. I went up there and pre-fished. It was in like the 70s. And I said, okay, they're going to split this lake. I look at the map and I go, logically, I think the split should be here or maybe here. So I fish around. I pre-fish for 2 days. I'm like, I got this thing wrapped up. Like, I don't need to look at anything else. I go golfing the last 2 days. Hit a couple real nice golf courses up there. We show up for that tournament. It's like 28 degrees and 50-mile-an-hour winds. Well, you can guess what happened to the shallow bite. Psht, gone. But Brad Lutner all of a sudden has 65 pounds in the first half an hour. And then you start looking at it and you're like, every one of his fish weighs 2.65. Hold on. So that's what happened is he didn't have cell service, so that kid's just going, enter, enter, enter. Oh, it's not going through. And then at some point they just went, shoop, right?
Yeah. He entered the same fish too many times. Honest mistake.
I finished that tournament in 12th.
Yeah.
Which I think at the time was top 25 is what got the fish championship.
Yep.
So I was very happy with 12th, and then I was happy I got an invite for Fish the Tour the next year, and I've been fishing it since.
Yeah, dude.
And there's been 2 years where I really didn't like the schedule, and I thought, I'm not going to fish it this year. And then people were, my wife included, Matt Thompson included, a couple other guys were like, it's starting to get popular. Like,
yeah,
they're
dude.
filling this every year. Like, if you leave one year, you might not get back in the next year. So I'm like, I'm just going to stick with it, and we'll
dude, you're really
fish
good at
some
it.
of these lakes. And
Dude, you're really fucking good at it.
Right.
Okay? Like, you just told me, like, you can put yourself in uncomfortable situations and catch bass, Arnie.
And that's why I say I think these younger kids, and not even that, even some of the older guys that haven't fished this format, I think you need like a 3-year learning curve. Like, don't expect to do good right away. Mm-hmm. We've had a couple that Walker
Walker? Yeah.
He wins.
Good
he
dude.
wins one. Well,
Yeah.
it's his home waters.
Kind of, yeah.
But even that, this game it's a mind game. I mean, it's really tough to stick with what you're doing and
100%.
not paying attention to what everyone else is doing. And so, I mean, that's an anomaly. Who's the other guy? The guy that won Big Stone.
Joel Willard.
Willard.
Great angler.
First time he wins Big Stone.
I don't know if that was his first ever Champs Tour event. He was considered a rookie, but I think he fished one of them early ones.
Okay.
Early ones. But I do want to get into, like, you as an angler, because what I think's cool, my favorite thing about this podcast is just learning how different some of us think, right? And
Right.
I think that's one of the most beautiful things about fishing is there's a million ways to skin the cat, and I feel like you and I are very opposites, like styles, right?
Sure.
Like, I feel like I wish I was as good as you at what you do.
Yeah, and I'd probably say the same thing on the flip side.
You know, we all have like those magic
Right.
skills, right? And I guess it's just been like I slept on you, dude. And that's on me. And at the end of the day, I want you to know that like your style of fishing is an art form that I think should be appreciated as much as any other style. And your junkers, your dockers, your froggers, like you get a lot of flack sometimes. They get a little hate from, you know, your more intricate, you know,
And I laugh about
offshore folk, if you will. So I want to dig into that because it's an art form. So I want to hear the Picasso of dock fishing because I don't know if there's a guy better at it that I've ever interviewed.
So what I always tell people is, if dock fishing was so easy and you could all win money at it, everyone would be doing it. There's a lot of guys that get frustrated maneuvering the boat up there. You lose a lot of lures up there. You know, once I don't lose a lot of lures, but I mean, I put the lure where I want it. But I get a lot of guys saying, you know, is that all you do? No, I have 40 rods in my boat that are rigged for doing other stuff.
I think I knew we were going to get into the fact that you're not a one-dimensional angler, I guess. I wasn't trying to paint you that way.
Right.
And that's where I said I didn't define you as, I would say you're a really good shallow water angler. But I don't think there's something you can't do, I guess, either.
Right. I prefer to look at my targets. I don't prefer to be out in 25 feet of water. Like, we fished that trout lake for a championship a few years ago. I put my boat in and I looked down and I was like, man, it's 30 feet deep here. You can see the bottom. I'm not going to do good today. I mean, I just knew it right away. Like, this is not me. It's not something where you want to learn on the fly in these tournaments. So I prefer to fish shallow and I prefer to throw plastics. And I get a lot of guys, you really fish that tube a lot. Yeah. Well, why? Why do you throw a black and blue jig or a green pumpkin jig 90% of the time? Because you're comfortable with it.
Confidence.
You're confident that you're going to catch fish.
And it's getting bit, bud.
And I've gone from...
I don't throw it. Walk me... So, I've heard about it, right? And I've just that stupid that I still haven't spent time with a white tube. And that's... I mean... But for people... Like, a white tube? Like, it is kind of...
It doesn't make any sense because it's not mimicking anything in the lake besides like maybe a sunfish that's been dead for a week floating around the water. There's not a lot of white natural bait in the lake.
I think it's got to be some sort of agitation.
Could be because I know a lot of guys that fish beds.
That's what makes sense to me.
Fish white.
Right. Reactionary.
One, because you can see it. You can see it when the fish sucks it in. But
and no one else is throwing it, maybe.
For a long time, everyone used to throw white lizards, 4-inch white lizards.
Really?
On bedfish, and they just couldn't stand it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it's because it's white or if it's because of the lizard, but I think they can see the bait just as well as I can see the bait. But there are lakes where it doesn't work.
Sure.
It does not work on vermilion. I learned that the hard way. Showed up to vermilion the first time. I blasted off from this hotel or this cabin we were in. Ran down the shoreline. The first 2 docks, throw a white tube. Bam, bam. 2 smallies. And I was like, this is weird. That was it. The rest of the time I was there, I couldn't get bit on it.
That lake's super specific. Like, that... I have my own box for that lake, for example. Like,
I put a box together the first year I went of orange and brown crawfish baits, only to get up there and find out their crawfish are not orange and brown. Till you flip a bass in the boat and they spit it on the floor, but that's because the bass's body has changed the color of it, the acid in their stomach.
Yes.
So all the crawfish up there are like that olive color. So I literally still have this box at home. It's got $75 worth of bait in it. And I specifically bought it for that lake, and I have to redo the whole box because all the crankbaits that are in there, all the spinner baits that are in there, it's not the right color. And I just feel like on that lake with the water clarity, you have to match the hatch pretty good up there.
I agree with that.
So
I found that's a nugget. That's a nugget. So fishing shallow, though, that is difficult for me. It is difficult for me to fish docks all day. You got to be real good at casting, which I feel like I used to be better than I am nowadays. But B, it's a matter of, it's like once you get that offshore school in you, it feels like you're wasting more time going after those individual fish, which is, I think, what I struggle with the most. But I think how you look at a dock, how you look at shallow stuff, to me is what makes you special. It's not just this white tube in your hand that's what does it. It's you're assessing the situation. You're looking at where you're going to do what you're going to do.
To me, it's like everything. There's so much involved in the weight. How fast of a fall do they want? Do they want something that's just flutter into the bottom? Sometimes it's more of a reaction bite where I'll fish a 1/2 ounce weight, you skip it under there, and it's immediately sinks right to the bottom. And if they're not biting it, you pop it once or twice, and if you didn't get bit, there's nothing under there on this dock.
Do you roll in with the 1-2 of weights? Because that's something I've learned this year that I'm gonna be.
I fish from 16th ounce jig heads all the way up to a quarter or half. So 16th. Quarter. Actually, I think I have some 3/4, but I don't use them very often unless I'm fishing docks that are like 7, 8, 10 feet deep out on the end of them. But then I don't like if they're weedy, because then you throw a 3/4 in there and it gets down in the weeds all the time, and then you're just.
So you'll have a combination every day.
I do.
You're fishing, and you don't. Okay. So do you always keep that combination? Because in your opinion, how often does it change? Like, does it change from dock to dock, or
no?
I
think it's
from day to day?
I think it's a lake deal and a weather driven. If it's super hot out, a lot of times they just want something, you throw it under there. I'll throw a 16th ounce, and if you watch that bait, it doesn't go like this. Mm-hmm. It's sinking kind of like this, almost like a Cinco kind of quivers.
Sure. Are we talking about the tube still?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. It's.
How do you? I mean, if you want to get into it, you can. If not, no worries. But I'm curious how you rig it. I mean,
so that's going to change. I've been fishing the same jig head for 25 years probably, and now it's not made anymore. So I've been playing with some other stuff. But I literally contacted the company to try to buy the molds, and they had already destroyed the 16th ounce mold. So I asked them, "Well, are you going to make the 1/8 ounce anymore?" He said, "We're on the fence." And I said, "If you're not going to make them anymore, I would like to buy the molds." Well, what price point are we talking about? I'm like, whatever you got into them. So not only will I'll make them for myself, I have friends that use them.
I don't think you understand the magnitude of this situation, sir.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
I get
this bait.
Stop making my tube.
These hooks have won me a lot of money.
Stop making my favorite tube this year. So I guess if you want, we could send a message out to the galaxy. Maybe somebody listening, because at the end of the day, they don't make them no more, right? So we could say it.
I think I got to call the Waypoint guys.
Let's. Are we allowed to say it if it's not made anymore, or is it?
Yeah. So, I first found this bait at Gander Mountain. If that tells you how long ago it was.
Maybe a listener might find you a mold, dude, or be able to make one.
Gander Mountain went out of business. How long ago do you think? 15 years ago?
10, 15, something like that. They became Camping World, I think, right? That's Or was I don't remember. That was a shit show.
Yeah, they're the ones that bought them.
Okay. Yep.
So I found these at Gander Mountain. It was under the heading B Fish and Tackle. Letter B, Fish and Tackle.
B Fish and Tackle.
And if you're in the bait stores now, you still see a lot of their walleye stuff. Like they have a ringworm.
Oh, like the big fish. Is it Big Fish and Tackle or B?
It's just B Fish and Tackle.
B Fish. Because I feel like I've seen them ringworms.
They make a lot of floating jig heads.
Okay.
And they make some other stuff too. But this smaller jig head, they actually designed for fishing walleyes in the weeds. So they would put one of their ringworms, or they got another bait that looks like a ringworm, but it's got a drop belly on it.
Okay.
That the hook kind of hides in there.
Sure, like a weedless walleye presentation, so to speak, for a ringworm. That's where you got this from?
Right. And so then I bought them through them for probably 10 years, and then they disappeared, and I was like, oh, crap.
How'd you figure that out?
I just bought a pack of them one day, and so the biggest problem is I want a weedless jig head.
Yeah.
So when you get down to a 16th ounce.
Well, tubes can be finicky depending on, like, what tube it is, how you want to rig it. They can, like...
And I like a heavier body tube. I don't like the Gitsits where it's one dip, super thin, paper thin.
No, thank you. Yep, I'm with you.
I mean, if you're going to skip it, it needs to have some weight behind it, the tube itself. But
I feel like they hold on to it a little longer, too.
So these hooks disappear. So what the heck? So I called Dean maybe. Just said, hey, have you ever dealt with these guys or whatever? And he had told me that they sold the mold to Venom. So I've been buying them from Venom for the last 15 years probably. And Venom
the hook?
Venom got bought out a couple years ago.
No.
And they're changing a bunch, like a lot of their stuff that wasn't, their greatest sellers or whatever. It's money. So they don't sell a ton of them. So Whiting uses them. I was telling him, I can't believe they discontinued them. He's like, I know that guy personally that bought it. I'll call him. I'll get you some. Called me a couple weeks later. He goes, yeah, they're just not doing them. I'm like, I offered to buy the molds, and the guy won't respond to me. Like, if you're not going to make them anymore.
Do you have some?
Some of the baits?
That head still, at your house?
Hundreds of them.
Okay. I feel like Cody Rostein might be able to. There's people who can make that mold if you have the jigs.
And that's what I was kind of thinking.
That's why I wanted to bring it up. Wasn't to give your stuff out, is to maybe give you a. I feel like you could start, if that's your deal. I mean, you got AOY win, countless other wins.
Yeah, if I could make them
tube that way.
If I could make them over the wintertime and make a couple thousand of them, I know people that really love them too, and they're like, "What do you mean they're not making them?" I go, quarter ounce and half ounce are going to make still, and that's
it. Speakeasy that shit, for gosh sakes.
Right.
So, what's this the closest to, comparable, just so I can understand this rig a little better?
It's
I'm following, but I'm not fully.
So the biggest problem with when you get down to a 16th or an 1/8 ounce jig head, what do you get for a hook?
Tiny.
Right? It's like a crappie jig.
Yep.
These have 3/0 hooks on them.
Okay.
So when you're fishing a 4-inch tube, that hook's quite a ways back.
Like a wide gap or a screw lock?
It's more like a wide gap.
So it's got the bend in it.
Yep.
Okay.
And then it's got kind of almost a triangle shaped button head on it.
Sure. Yep.
And then a double weed guard, just two little metal weed guards on it.
Oh. Okay, so you're just kind of threading it up there, it on.
Yeah, it's not a true, it's not a Texas rig or anything.
See, that's
and I
cool,
think
man.
That's part of the reason I do so well with it is the guys, I've tried the internal weights where you Texas rig it,
stupid tube,
drop this thing in there, and you're threading the hook through there. So now your weight is inside, and it's a true Texas rig.
Yep.
I don't think the hookup percentage is nearly as good.
Yeah, it's not as good, but I feel like it's not going to come through weeds as good as your head from the sounds of it. A,
right,
but B, and probably the hookup ratio on the gap you're talking about is probably better. But the bite me head for that application, and the right rod and fluorocarbon seems to help with the hook.
The rod is huge. I fished Abu Garcia Veritas rods for 10 years probably, and not because it was Abu Garcia, because I picked up one of those rods and I used it.
Most tournament anglers and guides are not covered fully or properly. Most insurance policies don't cover exposure due to tournaments and guiding. Taking the chance of using the wrong insurance gives the insurance company an out when settling a claim. How will the insurance company know that you're fishing tournaments or guiding? Well, social media is their number one resource. And guess what? They use it. Lake Country Insurance offers one of the only products that can cover both tournament and guiding use in your vessel. Anglers don't seem to hesitate spending $50,000 to $100,000 for a boat. Why risk that large asset, all because you wanted to save a few extra shekels? Are you nuts? Call the folks at Lake Country Insurance today and make sure you have the proper coverage for your boat before the unexpected happens. Call 612-285-3113 today, or visit their website, lcisagency.com. That's lcisagency.com.
So you need backbone with a soft tip. Because if you got
100%.
a stiff rod, you cannot place the bait where you want. You got to be able to have a little bit of tip to be accurate with it.
I think they like that bait. It helps keep the bait back further too.
Right.
Like, especially if they eat it sideways or something, like it helps you not pull that bait too far, like forward on when you jack them. I think that's big with it too, because it's a bulkier bait, and especially with like that stupid tube. So like Dane and I, we developed a rod basically kind of for that, and like any small jigs and stuff.
Right.
And that's exactly what it is. And I'm sure you're
just
still
not
with Kistler. Or?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sure they make a rod you like for that.
Yeah.
Maybe?
So I fished medium heavies in the Abu Garcia line. Well, they have what they call light medium heavy.
Interesting.
And it's got the same backbone as a heavy, but it's got a little softer tip. And it's kind of funny because I went 3 years with never breaking a rod, and I was used to buying 6-8 Abus a year. So I was like, oh, these things are so good. I haven't broke a rod in like 3 years, and last year I broke 5 rods. And it's like, are they just getting old? Did you smash them? Did you step on? Like one of my buddies I fished was always stepping on my shit.
Did you won AOY with them in the past? Maybe it was just that extra weight you're carrying this year.
I don't know. Maybe.
Dude, that is such a prized award to win, I think, and I hope it isn't underfelt, I guess, because you win it at the same time as a guy wins a boat. So it's like it's kind of one of them deals where it's like, and you had second in that tournament. So
this is what happened at that tournament is,
I forgot that. Yeah.
I told my wife, I said, this is the closest it's ever been to our house. I mean, it's 30 minutes from my house. And I said, I would expect you to show up. Well, I have to work. I said, I know your boss very well. If you called him and said, hey, here's what's going down, he would say, what are you doing here? Get out of here. So I said, here's what you do. You watch the first half. If I'm doing well, you come up and watch the weigh-in. You'll have to leave work an hour and a half early. Okay. Well, she's on the computer all morning. The owner of the company's on the computer. 3 other guys at work are bass fishermen that work in her company. Yeah. So nobody's getting anything done. So her boss was finally like, well,
just go there.
What's going on here? Like, how does this work? Like, when is it over or whatever? So she's like, well, it's almost halftime. You know, they take a break. They go out for the second half. And he's like, well, you're not doing anything. So why don't you just head on up there? So she comes. And it was an eye-opener for her because I don't think, like, I'm a pretty modest guy. I don't run around bragging. Like, when I run into people,
dude,
they're
you
like...
fly under the radar. That's why I'm glad you're here.
Yeah,
because you keep to yourself. Like, dude, you sleep in your truck. You're a freaking hardcore
I don't
bastard.
sleep in my truck always.
But you're a crackhead about it like me. And I guess, like, I don't get to talk to you very much. So, like,
I tell people
cool.
it's like a second job, really.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to put your time in. But so my wife comes to this weigh-in, and I think she gets an eye-opener of who I am as an angler. I don't think she had any clue, like, where I'm at on the food chain. She thinks I just go out and I fish, and sometimes I bring some money home. And so then it was like a lot of, after the tournament, well, even before after the tournament, she's talking to Bonema, she's talking to Walker, she's talking to all the guys that are working the tournament. They're pumping me up some, and so she was like, wow, Then after the tournament, everyone's congratulating me, and I didn't take it. I didn't take it well.
Really?
I got my ass chewed when I got home. My wife said, you need to learn how to take compliments. And I said, what do you mean? She goes, every person that came up to you and said, congratulations, job well done, your answer was, yeah, but I gave this one away. I really thought I had this one. I could have, was really looking forward to taking that boat home. So she said, you should just be saying, thank you, appreciate it, whatever. And I said, I don't think you understand the magnitude of how this tournament.
A lot of emotions.
My foresight going into the tournament was, I'm going to win this one. I mean, that was my attitude going in. And there was like 2 or 3 other guys, Noah not being one of them, that I thought I was competing against. Matt Thompson for sure. He lives on the lake. I mean, he lives 5-10 miles away, but he spends a lot of time on that lake. So I thought he would do very well.
I did too.
And
I think he did too.
1 or 2 other guys I thought were really going to crack him.
I thought I was going to crack
him. And
I like that lake.
So I told my wife, I said, I don't think you realize from thinking this is the chance I got to win one of these championships. I told her, I said, they don't take us to dirty water. Everywhere we go, it's crystal clear. Besides the Mississippi,
or
everywhere we go, it's crystal clear water.
Yep.
And I said, this fits my style. I've got a lot of tournaments on this lake. I mean, I've won a ton of money on this lake. And then to start the first half, how I did,
dude,
and everything was going exactly how I wanted. Nobody was fishing any of my stuff in the first half, so I thought probably no one's fishing my second half either. But then when you come in at halftime and they see who's leading it, they know how I fish. I think a lot of guys went, I'm going to the bank second half, if that's where they're at. And I said, I've never seen 17 guys cover up a shoreline like that second half.
Really?
I started where I wanted to start, and then there was a guy that pulled in behind me, a guy that pulled in front of me, another guy a couple yards down.
Really?
And then from then, after I went to move, I just ran around like a chicken the rest of the day. Like
people start follow you around?
I don't know if it's that or if they just go, well, he's fishing shallow, so let's go shallow. This happened on Mille Lacs one year.
Because I picked the first half because I thought on the west side, because I thought the east side would spread out more, and I felt like in the afternoon I could have room to do what I wanted to do. But on the west side, I had these offshore spots that I had a lot of confidence in. They didn't pan out, but I was nervous about those getting fished in the morning.
So I approached it with local knowledge and not thinking that most of the guys fishing this tournament are not local guys. So any given tournament you fish there, we always blast off out of the east ramp.
Oh.
And if there's 30 boats, 25 of them go to the other side.
Yeah.
So I picked the east side thinking no one will be on it, and I should be able to get far enough ahead that no one will catch me. That was my thought process.
I was like so concerned that I was going to be just trafficked up on the west side, and I was like super surprised because I like the east like the west, but west I had a better practice, like big fish and numbers west, but I had a good practice both halves.
Yeah, most tournaments are won on the west side.
That doesn't surprise me. It
seems
giants.
like there's bigger fish over there.
It does.
There's more fish on this side, and that's why I thought I should be able to put 50, 60 pounds in the boat in the first. Because everyone I was talking to, I talked to Ron Mayer, and he's like, I think it's going to take 10, 12 pounds to win. I go, what? And
he told me that. I'm like, no way.
So bad. And a bunch of other guys were like, been out here for 4 days, haven't got bit. And I thought, well, you just aren't fishing it right. Like, the fish are here. This lake is loaded with fish. They grow big. They grow quick.
I didn't think it'd be as good as it ended up being, but
No,
I thought it'd be better than I heard it was going to be awful because it killed or something. I'd heard it killed or
I
something.
think they had a fish kill, but that lake is the same thing. In the spring, it's a very good lake, and it's a little clearer. And then July rolls around, and they get a huge algae bloom, and it's that slick green, like you're driving your boat, and it's just slick green algae. Open your live well, you can't even see your fish in there because it's just
I like
nasty.
the lake. I love how it sets up.
But
it
the
reminds
lake
me of
is
horseshoe chain.
The lake is down 5 feet probably from normal.
Oh yeah, I couldn't fish some of the docks in that boat that I wanted to.
Right.
To be honest, I'm excited for their new one coming out.
I tore up my trolling motor blade. Just beat the crap out of it. I busted my prop on that tournament. Took one wing off one of my. I run a 4-blade. Took one whole wing off of it.
Run a little harder. Not bad.
And
damn.
Yeah, I did a trolling motor repair at halftime. Oh, I broke the handle. Broke.
Sure.
It didn't break. So the Ghost has a steel cable with a rubber coating on it.
Yep.
And it runs into this little barrel swivel deal that's got an Allen head on it. And it broke. The cable broke at the screw.
Okay.
So now I got a stainless steel cable that looks like this, right? It's all frayed. And I'm trying to push that back into a little tiny hole so I can put it back on.
So you had some issues.
I spent 10 minutes on it and I was like, nope. I just tied a knot in it. Put the barrel swivel under the knot, tied a knot in it. And then I was messing around with it and someone said, I got a side cutter. All right. So then I got some tools from Connor.
Yeah.
And I was able to put it back together the right way.
This is before the tournament?
No, halftime.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, about the last hour of the first half, I didn't have a handle. I had to wrap my round around.
Oh, yeah.
And you'd be surprised how much the handle helps.
Yeah, the handle helps a bunch. I've dealt with that. I ended up grabbing a pliers and grabbing it, and then like the pliers that locks, like the forceps, which isn't that strong from there, but if you clip it and then wrap it and then grab close to that.
Yeah.
That's what my weak ass did when that happened to me.
Yeah.
But anyway, you were talking about how your wife was saying compliments, and I think that you're not the only person that has a tough time with compliments. I can, like, but she's right. Like, and from my standpoint, she's right, and like I need to be better about that sometimes, and you get stuck in these. When you're stuck in the emotion of fishing, it's really tough to feel anything.
Yeah, and for how that day went, it just went from going into this, listening to everyone, not catching anything. No one's gonna catch anything. People are gonna blank. There's half the field's not gonna catch fish, and I was like, I'm gonna smoke them. So I don't know what they're talking about, but then I started looking like, okay, Matt Thompson's from here. He knows how to fish here. There's a couple other guys I thought would do well. Not realizing where Noah's from, this is the lakes he fishes, the same garbage.
It's a sewer hole, just like they're all sewer holes.
But just the buildup of it, and then for the second half, like I couldn't get bit for hours, and it was just like you can just feel it's going away.
Dude, I feel like the split kind of.
It really slowed down in the second half.
For the west half, for sure. The east half, I don't know about the dock bite on the east half, but the bite on the east half maintained all day long. Yep. The west half seemed like, was there anybody that caught him on the west side? I don't
think anyone did well the second half.
Dane and I started on opposite sides, and he had a good first half on the east side, awful second half on the west side, and I had just mediocrity, period. But that's where I felt bad. It's like because that lake well enough, and it seemed like full moon. You got full moon, and you got bigger fish,
right,
on the one side. So I didn't necessarily put that together. I don't know the lake that well, but
the worst part about it is I know what I should have done, and
hindsight's always 20/20.
Couldn't get myself to do it because I knew
the whole time.
The whole second half, after like the first half hour, I got bit right away. I caught 6-7 fish right away. So then you're locked into, well, this will work.
Oh, yeah.
And then after that shut down, I know how tournaments are won on that lake, but it's a slow, steady grind of 5-pounders.
You just had to slow down more, you think? Or what do you think you should have done, I guess?
Different structure, very slow fishing, very methodical fishing, different structure.
More isolated?
And I just didn't think that if I only caught 3 or 4 more fish, but they were all 4 or 5-pounders, that would get me there. So I kept going after the 2s and 3s, trying to just get them. And just when I would be about, I think I should just dump this. I should just go do what I know I need to do. I'd catch a fish. And he'd be like, let me fish a few more of these.
You weren't even thinking about AOI, were you? Was that even in your brain at that point? Because
no, I just wanted to win the tournament.
I wouldn't have thought of that. Wouldn't have.
I mean, I knew I was in second place points wise.
Did you think it was some was that going into that tournament? Was AOI something that was a thought for you even?
I thought the only way I would win that was if I won the tournament.
Got it. So that was basically the only way to win AOI.
Because I was in second for points,
yep.
but there was quite a few points.
It's a decent gap.
Yeah, it wasn't really close at all. So my thought process was I've got to win this tournament. Angler of the Year will come, if it's going to come.
Yeah, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be.
But that was the same thing. I came in at the end of the tournament. I was told Keller won it by one of the tournament people. One of the tournament workers told me that Keller had won it. They told Keller he had won it. Bonema told Keller that
I think
he had won it.
He might have told me that, yeah.
And then they had something figured out wrong or something.
Miscalculation, it happens.
Yep.
Yep.
So then, I didn't even think I won it. And then they started talking about it a little bit. And then when he brought me up on stage and he's like, well, don't go anywhere. We got one more thing to give you. I was like, no way. And Keller was like, I'm watching him and he's like, what happened here?
I think he's just a little heartbroken, I think just like you with
same thing.
With Noah,
you just go from being this massive crescendo
fish away, and then yep, that's fishing. That is tournament bass fishing, right? It is
right.
It is a sport that will humble you if think you got it, it's about to tell you no.
And that's why I say you've got to have if you're going to come and try this trail out, you've got to put a 3-year plan together.
Got to put Band-Aids on your nipples.
Because I can tell you now, when I go fish a 5-fish tournament, I know if I'm over on Clearwater, I know it's going to take about an 18-pound bag typically.
Typically, 18, 19, yeah.
So if you've got 12 pounds, you're not doing good.
Right.
But if you're sitting 17, 18, you're doing good. But you have no idea till you get to the weigh-in.
Correct. If you want to feel better about it, you need a 5-pounder right now, which is not real common out there.
And I've won tournaments out there with 13 pounds, and I've won tournaments out there with 22 pounds. Yep. I mean, it's just... But when I fish these 5-fish tournaments now, it's more relaxing, and you know what needs to be done.
It's crazy.
But when you're being told all day long where you're at, and I tell people, if you're down at the bottom, this kid can tell you whatever he wants. It doesn't matter. If you're fighting for the lead, your brain is going 1,000 miles an hour. Or what I think draws a lot of kids into this circuit is how far pay down goes to.
Mm-hmm.
It's not so heavily weighted at the top that only 5 guys are getting paid or whatever. So when I first started this, my thought process was, I don't know if I can beat all these guys, but I can win some money. I can be in that top 5, top 8.
It's a good cash checking. I've noticed that.
And
for sure, that's what I love about the tour is it feels financially justifiable compared to some others, given the weight of it. It's not like the Bassmaster Opens, for example.
Yeah, because
your payback percentage is way better on the Champions Tour.
Well, and the percentage has got to be. I don't know how he does it. He's a magician for payouts, but I think Bonema's paying out 140%, 130, 140%.
It's the best payouts that I've seen on a tournament trail that exists. And hats off to those guys, dude.
And for us, we're the only one with a boat. Ever since the last one that I fished locally,
it's an honor to fish it.
Was Frankie's Pro Team tournament.
Yeah.
They used to give a boat away every year.
Oh, sure.
And then when the economy dwindled a little bit, they went from a 20-foot loaded Ranger to the last year they had a 17-year-old holdover. And
17-year-old?
No, a 17-foot.
Yep.
2-year-old 17-foot boat with a 2-year-old motor on it, no electronics, no trolling motor, no stripped down. They still walked away with probably at that time $35,000 boat. But they went from giving away the top of the line stuff, and then prizes just kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And now they just changed it last year. I think they're only going to have 25 guys in it this next year. I'm like, never. And I quit it. I didn't do it last year because I couldn't, because it's a champ tour, because we're on the Hamadou. I could practice, drive back down and fish it, come back up, and I'm like, no, it's just going to mess up my focus, so I can't do it. Now I don't know if I'll get in next year because they started this new thing where if you fish it this year.
For Frankie's you're talking?
Yep. So you fishing it this year, you can put a deposit to save your spot for next year.
That's it.
So good luck getting back into it now.
And, okay, so let's look at the tour that is giving away boats and what it's done for the sport in Minnesota. I mean, as an example for the sport to other states, for this regional kind of platform that Scott's put together, and granted, they don't make more Scott Bonemas, so it's not like anybody can, and Newman's and, that crew. It's not like any Tom, Dick, and Harry can pull it off, but from a sponsorship perspective, I really do hope that people are seeing that the effects of having a bigger platform like this is a positive thing, for fishing, for the anglers, for the youth. I feel like we're hopefully teaching the youth, correct stuff on the water, right? Which is, I mean, you could get in a whole debate about that, and we maybe don't even need to go down that rabbit hole because I'm sure there's plenty of people who have plenty to say or think about that, but well, whatever, dude. But yeah, I don't know where I was going with that.
If you look at this tour, it's the only one I see. Well, maybe the team trail. It's one of the only ones I've seen that has progressed rapidly. You have all these other circuits. Like I fished the Greenhorn circuit last year. This was the first year last year where they actually went from a $50 entry fee up to like $100. So I thought, well, $100 entry fee, they have a $100 side pot, and then they have a points deal and some other stuff. So now it went from driving to Clearwater and winning $325 to you might be able to make $1,200-$1,500 in a day. Now it's more appealing to me.
Right.
But other than that, all these other small circuits, they pay the same thing they've paid. It's the same entry for years. And what did we start at? 500.
Right, but for a while there was all these little ones, and there was nothing.
Yeah, there's nothing on the upper end.
There was nothing like if you did want to make the jump.
You'd have tournaments like the Blackfish, where there'd be one or two events a year, or that's why guys were driving to Sturgeon Bay.
Right.
I haven't been there. I want to go there.
I haven't been because now they have good trails that keep me here that time
right,
of year,
but that's why guys would go to Sturgeon Bay. That's why they'd go fish the Okoboji Open, because there's money.
Yeah.
And just a lot of these small trails around here, I mean, you're paying. I laugh because you got a guy, he's got a boat like this. He's got truck, trailer, and boat without gear. Guy's driving around $125,000, and he's fishing tournaments that he's going to win $400.
Totally.
But that's basically all we had around here.
Yep.
Till the Champions Tour started. Now, I think the team trail, they jumped up, was it last year?
Last year to 80 boats.
Right.
Which is
so that must have changed the payouts. Must have got better.
Yeah. Top end.
So
I guess don't quote me on it. I haven't done the hard math, which I probably should, but yeah, it's the caliber of anglers and the style of fishing, team trail fishing. It's the best of the best. It's really competitive. Sure. It's really hard. It's the hardest 5-fish team circuit I've ever fished as far as a trail was last couple of years. It just keeps getting better and better every year.
The last thing we had like that was that North Star Trail.
Yeah.
That was it's been a long time, but I remember I won a Clearwater event on that. I think I took home almost $4,000.
Yeah.
So I mean, and then that was only here for a couple years and it went away. I'm like,
get second in any of those, it's like, well, you get in a lot of these, it's like feels like you got to win, or else it's what's the point in traveling to Vermilion?
Yeah.
For example, to practice for 2 days and get second place and win $750.
Yeah, it doesn't cover your lodging.
It's a swift kick in the dick.
Yeah. So
from a financial perspective, now maybe you learned how to be a better angler. Maybe you learned the lake. That's going to take you into the future. So to me,
the next time you go there, or whatever.
Right. There's this tuition fee involved with tournament fishing that I think people always need to keep in mind. That's you're not just throwing money away. You're gaining experience every event you fish. So you're not just throwing money away.
Yeah, and my tuition fee was much smaller than a lot of guys. I started out with a 17-foot nitro, fishing American bass anglers. We had one district at the time. I think the first 2 years I did okay. And then I went Angler of the Year like 6 years in a row. And then like 8 out of 10 years I was Angler of the Year there. Won a ton of tournaments, and it was like, I think I need to move up a little bit. And then you start looking around, and we had Fishers of Men at the time.
Yep, remember those?
And the only issue with those is the payout was like 65-70%.
Payouts were shit.
And
you gave half of them to God, which, glory to God. And the meeting's the night before, so if it was far away,
I used to have to drive to Clearwater, go to the meeting, and then turn around and drive home.
They didn't get a guy who snoozed all the kids away for the night, But there was good door prizes.
But a lot of that was it's a national trail. It's the same as American bass anglers. The only way to get your money back, or to feel like you had a good value to what you paid for your entry fee, is to go to nationals. But that's not as what it was anymore.
No, that's a whole nother conversation. Team trail. That's why we fish team trail. They got that team championship now.
Yeah.
Yep. Same kind of thing. Generally, same general type of conversation. Qualify for a national deal. Fishers of Men had that too, I think. Actually.
Yeah.
Yep. ABA. Yep.
So that's where all your money goes. And so in the younger years of the ABA,
a big pot, a national pot.
Like you'd go to Kentucky Lake, and it was the guy that won the tournament got a new boat, and they were Tritons at the time, like 19-foot Tritons with a 200, good electronics, good trolling motor. Angler of the Year got one, and they would just draw a name out of the hat for one.
What?
3 boats a year they used to give away at the ABA. Then they went to a regional setup where you had to qualify for nationals by going to a regional.
Okay.
Every region was giving a boat away for whoever won the regional event. And then you'd go to nationals, and they had a regional fish-off like 3 days before nationals started. So every guy that won his region, so there'd be like 14 guys fishing for another new boat. Now, this last year at nationals, they gave one boat away. Whoever won the tournament got a boat. That was it. But, I mean, locally, the only guy, we had John Stevenson. It sounded like they were getting ready to leave. They're like, John, they called their name. He's like, whatever. They're like, no, it's for the boat. And he's like, come on, you guys are kidding me. He walks back in there, and they're like, John Stevenson? Yeah. Come up on stage,
No way.
Drew his name for... Trevor runs the boat now.
Sure.
I think it's like a 19 XS or something with a 200 on it.
Dude, John's always been a super nice guy. He passed, I think, recently,
he did.
right?
Yep.
He's an OG shallow guy, dude.
Yep.
I remember him rolling on the Silverados back in the day.
Yep.
And that man could frog. He could really good at it.
He was definitely one of those guys where when you showed up for a tournament, you knew one of the payouts was gone because he's taking one of them.
Yeah, you didn't know if he was going to catch one of them or 5 of them, but he was going to catch a big one.
I got a guy that told me that this year. I was talking to a guy. I'll tell you his name, but he's over at my house doing some work, and he's like, yeah, did you hear that the Champions Tour's one less payout this year? I said, no, I hadn't heard that. And he said, yeah, there's going to be one less check this year. And I was like, I haven't heard that. He goes, well, it's because I signed up. I'm taking one in every tournament. I go, oh, now I see where you're going. But that's a little cocky.
Oh, well, yeah. I don't like people who talk like that.
It was the same thing when I was
Sorry to whoever you are, but it's a little cocky for me.
When I was younger, like you would show up at a tournament, and you'd be like, oh, crap, I'm fishing for second already. And my main one for that was, I have 2 of them. We used to fish Coon Lake over in Anoka County. And we had a guy, that's the only lake we ever saw him on. But you could not beat him on this lake. And he fished the same spot every time. And you would go there and practice there. And first of all, you couldn't find out what is he even fishing. I don't know if it's just a small depression with one clump of weeds. But this is before side scan or anything, just 2D sonar. You know exactly where he's fishing, what cabin he's fishing in front of. And couldn't beat the guy. He would come in with 22 to 25 pounds on coon every time we were out there. I know a guy that fished out of the back of his boat as a non-angler. The next day went to that spot and tried to catch fish. Couldn't catch anything. And then Pretzel on Waconia. That was like my nemesis on Waconia. If you showed up and he was there, it was like, well, we're fishing for second because Pretzel's here. So,
yeah,
but.
You ever go up to the tournament that morning and just throw some Dots pretzels in his boat and say, I'm coming for you today?
I think a banana would be better.
Oh, agreed. So you're not... I'm no bananas allowed in that thing. ever. Are you?
I guess
are
I
you on
don't-
the same program? Or do you have any?
I don't think I have anything like that where.
Okay, so you'll
I
eat a
think
banana
it's-
in the boat.
Sure.
It's just you think you might fuck with someone else throwing one in there. So
I
you
mean,
definitely
who's the-
you be doing some bad shit throwing bananas in my boat.
Who do we have last year that showed up in banana pajamas?
Sobe.
Was it Sobe?
He's the only guy I know who wears the banana shirt and
Yeah.
like just cherishes.
So
the
he's
banana.
throwing it in the face like, yeah, I'm not afraid of a banana.
This podcast is brought to you by my compadre, my tournament partner, my brother, and the best rod builder above the Mason-Dixon line, Vocelka Fishing and Customs. Specializing in custom fishing rods. That's right. Hand-built fishing rods, custom-made and tailored how you want, whether it's by length, action, specific technique, balance, or anything you want. Anything. Vocelka Fishing and Customs can build it. Mr. Vocelka also has a wide variety of rods to choose from, which we've had a lot of fun with, perfecting and testing. The most unique and famous rod developed at Vocelka Fishing and Customs is his custom marabou hair jig rod. Have you thrown the old Canadian dinner mint, the Harry Gary, the fighter fly, the old thin Lizzie? If you have, then you know these little fluff balls can be hard to cast, especially at those key sizes as light as 1/16 of an ounce. Well, what if I told you you could cast that marabou jig 30 to 50% farther than you're casting it now? What if I told you you don't have to spook those shallow, skittish smallmouth? Well, with the custom hair jig rod from Vocelka Fishing and Customs, not only can you cast a lot further, but the way this rod loads up on a long cast is pure perfection. This balanced rod has the perfect backbone with a light action parabolic taper that keeps those fish pinned without breaking your line. Mr. Vocelka utilizes an 8-foot custom fly fishing blank converted to a spinning rod and couples it with premium guides leading up to custom fly guides that allow maximized casting distance and reduced line friction and blank slap, maximizing your overall performance, obviously. And we found this rod is not only perfect for marabou hair jigs, but for any light bait you need to cast far, including small swim baits, spy baits, and more. Any light bait you need to cast far, look no further than the Vocelka Fishing and Customs Hair Jig Special. So head on over to his website, vocelkafishing.com. That's VOCELKA fishing.com. And treat yourself to the custom hair jig rod or any custom rod you can dream up.
Super not afraid of bananas. Yeah, I think that was last year I saw him and I was like, what?
I feel like if anybody has more experience, you know, you fish more docks than anybody, and you hear about these stories about lake owners, and we've all experienced them. And I want to hear some Arnold Helgerson Karen on the dock, like, because hey, it's when you're fishing shallow combat, when you're up against the Shih Tzus and the different dogs that run out on these things, and then the people up in the houses watching, and then maybe the family reunions next door, who the fuck knows?
I
want to hear some wild shit if you got it.
I have it. And what I tell people all the time is I'm a super nice guy.
Yeah.
You
seem like a nice
If I'm
guy.
driving down the freeway and I see you pulled over with a flat, I'm the guy that's going to stop and, hey, do you need some help?
Yeah.
I've got a spare tire. Let's change it out quick. But I always tell people that only goes so far. And then if you want to play the game, who's the bigger asshole? I'm very good at that as well. So when you deal with these dock owners, it's all about approach. Like, I'm going to start out, someone comes down the dock and is like, hey, I'd prefer you not fishing around my boat. No problem. I'm just going to go around. If I'm fishing for a ton of money and I really think there's a good fish under there, I might push back a little bit. But typically, I'm going to go around. If I'm coming down the shoreline, there's some kids swimming, I'm just going to go around.
I do the same thing.
But when they come down 100 miles an hour on super aggressive behavior and start swearing right away, I will power pull down and fish. I'll tell the guy, I'm going to sit here all day. It's fine. But typically, when they come down, if they're like, hey, I don't want you fishing around my dock, first thing I say is, why? well, last week a guy did this and
So
a guy
you've got
did
a
that.
process for this.
Yeah. When I was younger, I just used to give him the bird and just tell him bite it.
Piss off.
But when they say a guy did this, a guy did that, I always say, well, I didn't do that. And a lot of times I'll flip my bait up onto their dock. You know, if I'm fishing a Senko and you throw it up there, you say, look, here's what I'm throwing around your dock. It's not going to hurt anything. Oh, you know, then sometimes it changes their attitude a little bit.
Sure.
But, I mean, I've had it all. There was a guy on Big Marine that used to come down. You'd hear the screen door slam. And I used to fish with a guy I worked with, and I'm like, hey, you ever been yelled at by a shore owner? No. I go, get ready. Why? I said, well, I know this guy personally. His name's Tom. Well, how do you know him? I go, you'll find out. Here he comes. Stomping on the dock. He never says anything. Stomp, stomp, stomp. Out on the end of his dock, he's got like a surf fishing rod. It's got a 2x4 tied to it, maybe like 6-8 inches long, on like a 100-pound braid.
No way.
And as soon as you start getting close to his dock, he'll start casting it out in the water, like he's trying to just get you to go around.
Yep.
And for a couple years, I was like, okay, go around him. Well, then I was fishing a tournament. I had like 15 pounds on Big Marine, which is a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot.
And I was kind of like, I've had enough of this guy, so I started inching towards his dock, and he starts casting this 2x4 at my boat. And I go, you know, if you hit my boat, I'm going to call the sheriff. And he goes, well, that's what you guys do. I go, who's you guys? Well, every boat that comes through here, they're throwing their jigs at my pontoon, making a bunch of noise. And I go, but I'm not. So I said,
Sir, I'm Arnold Helgerson.
So I said, I'll just let you know that what I'm doing is legal and what you're doing is illegal. Oh, no, I own the lake. I own a pie shape out to the middle. I'm like, no, you should check with your survey crew because you don't even own the shoreline.
Right.
And you start telling them this, and they, do you know what I pay in taxes? Well, it doesn't matter. The laws are on a public lake. There is no private property on public waterways. If there's a public boat launch, you don't even own the shoreline.
Could you have legally stepped onto his dock and had that conversation with him?
Any lake in Minnesota, you can get off on the shoreline on anyone's property. You can have a picnic on their dock. We
don't recommend that, but
no,
yeah, but that's great.
It's the same concept as if you deer hunt in a public forest.
Yep.
And you build a deer stand and you put it out there.
Sure.
Anybody that finds that deer stand can use it. Now, if I come out there in the morning and I just built this thing and you're sitting in it, I'm going to give you some grief, but I'm probably going to walk away knowing that he's not doing anything wrong.
No.
So in our state, you put a dock in the water, it becomes public property.
Yeah.
You can never own the water surface. We have what they call a meander line in Minnesota. So they go back 20 years to the high water mark. You own 10 feet on the other side of the high water mark, whatever it's been for the last 20 years. So it moves every year.
Okay.
So you can never own the shoreline.
Huh.
And a good example of that is there's a place, my home lake would be North and South Center in Lindstrom.
Sure. Yep.
There's a sandbar on the South Center where everyone pulls their pontoons up to and swims and that.
Yep.
And this guy's always down there. Get off my land, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
About 4 years ago, I was over there fishing for opener, and he's pounding construction stakes into the lake, like 10 feet from shore. Those green metal stakes.
Yep.
He's pounding them 3 feet apart all the way around his point. So I called the DNR, and I said, hey, just play stupid. And I said, you know, my family, we like to swim on the sandbar, but this guy's putting stakes in the water to keep us off the shore. Well, what do you mean? So, well, they're like big metal stakes. They're all 3 feet apart, so we can't get our boat to the shore no more. Can he do that? They're like, no, where's this at? Go there the next weekend, and he's out there pulling them all out. And I'm sure he got a fine. But my favorite story, it's on Forest Lake. The lake was very low, way low.
Yep.
Like drought years. So there weren't very many docks in the lake. They were all piled up on shore. But everyone had their lifts in the lake, but they were way out.
Sure.
So these people would they'd have like their lift out there.
To their boat.
Yep. Then maybe a dock section next to their pontoon so they could get out. They'd take their canoe out there. Well, so my back's to the shore, and I'm fishing this boat lift. There's maybe like 10 of them on this one shoreline, and I'm like in the middle of them. And I hear, don't even think about it. So I like, who's talking to me? I didn't see anybody. So I'm like, well, they must be talking to someone else, you know. He's right behind me. I didn't see him. So I made a cast, and he says, "Are you hard of hearing?" And again, I looked like, it feels like someone's talking to me.
Yeah.
Finally, I catch him out of the corner of my eye, and he's standing on like 6 feet of dock sticking out from the shore. That was it. So I said, what's going on? He's like, I don't want you fishing my boat lift. And I said, well, what you want and what's going to happen, probably not the same thing.
Yeah.
And he said, well, that's private property. I said, no, it's public property. I said, I can tie up to your boat and eat a sandwich, or tie up to your dock and get out and stretch my legs.
I bet he loved hearing that.
And he said, no, you can't. I said, oh, actually I can. That's the law in Minnesota. And so I went about fishing, made another cast. He says, I suggest you turn around. So I turn around, and he goes, I'm only going to tell you this one more time. I don't want you fishing my boat lift. I go, that's fine. I go to the next one, and I hear, my neighbor doesn't want you fishing his either. I go, that's too bad. Like, you're not going to follow me down the shoreline.
Right.
And he said something to the effect of, you're not going to like the outcome if you fish my neighbor's boat lift. And I turned around, and he's standing with his hand behind his back.
No way, dude.
And I thought, what is he doing? And he pulled his hand aside and showed me that he had a firearm. And I
Pistol.
said, yep, handgun. I said, hey, that's fine. I said, I'll leave. I drove to town, which is basically across the bay. I called the sheriff's department. Cop car comes with a boat launch, gets in my boat. As I'm pulling up to this guy's house, the cop says, this guy again? I go, again? I go, there's got to be consequences. I go, what I'm doing is totally legit. And this guy's showing me a gun, like threatening me. He's like, well, it's usually a BB gun. I said, I'm not going to decide that. I'm not going to decide that from 150 feet away.
What it is.
And I said, the intent is the same. You know, I go,
we're not fishing in North Minneapolis here, officer.
I said,
this is a nice community of Forest Lake, sir.
Yep. So I said, this guy really scared me. That's why I called you guys. And I said, it needs to be dealt with if it's happened before.
It's a fact.
Many times. I go, wow, it's got to be. I said, I'd like to know what the outcome is. So I said, do you need me to wait to give you a ride back? And he goes, no, I got 2 more squads coming to the front of the house now that I know the address. I said, okay. They called me later that evening and told me that they confiscated two handguns from him. And I go, he's got to learn that he doesn't own, I don't care if he pays $20,000 a year in taxes. He doesn't own the water. He doesn't own the surface. He doesn't own the shoreline. And, I mean, I've had people throw rocks at my boat.
Are you serious?
I used to fish with a guy that was, he still does. He works for an offshoot of the Minneapolis Police Department. Carries a gun all the time. Pulling up to the dock on Green Lake.
Spicer?
Nope, over in Chisago.
Yep.
The guy's got a rock about the size of a softball sitting on the end of his dock. Comes walking down. He's like, hey, come here. So I look at my buddy like, well, what are we doing? He goes, yeah, go over there. So I go over there, and I'm nosed up to the dock like 6-8 feet away. And he goes, see, I took this rock here. Throw it at your boat. But I'm just seeing how close I can get. Then I accidentally hit your boat. And my buddy goes, well, then this guy here is going to get off this boat and kick the shit out of you. Well, that's what you guys are doing. You guys are throwing your jigs at my dock. And then if you hit something, you don't think twice about it. And I go, well, we're not. And he's like, yeah, you were here earlier today. I go, we literally blasted off as a Frankie's Tuesday Nighter. So we literally blasted off and came straight here.
Bro, we just got here.
Just got here. Well, my wife said she saw a boat just like yours. I go, that's probably 20 of them. I don't know what to tell you. I said, but what we're doing is, you know, I said, I understand. You know, I've seen it like on White Bear. I saw someone had thrown a musky lure on top of a canopy and then just...
There's some people who definitely ruin it for the rest of us.
These kids must have just yanked because they tore 10 feet of this on there.
And that's why I'm glad you handle it the way you do, right? Is because there is people, and when you explain that to reasonable people who are willing to have reasonable conversations, who aren't emotionally, you know, the guy hasn't got laid in 8 months, but he's been mowing his lawn every 2 days, you know, or whatever.
Yeah, and I had a guy, I was fishing Coon Lake once, and they had a tournament the day before, and I'm going down the shoreline, and this guy's got a sandwich board. Thanks a lot, fisherman. You cost me thousands of dollars. And he's looking at me out the window. So I waved him out there. he was very hesitant to come down there. And I just said, hey, I'd like to talk to you about, what's this board all about? So he came down. He goes, look behind you. So I turn around and look. And here's one of those trampolines laying on the bottom. Someone had hooked it, popped a hole in it. So he's like, yeah. And then they hooked the gas line on my pontoon and just ripped the hose right off my gas line. So I said, well, you should call the sheriff. And I go, at some point, this is public property. I said, but at some point it's property damage.
Yeah.
Well, they're not going to do anything about it. I said, no, I think if they knew who had the permit for yesterday or who was here,
Yeah.
I think they would try to backtrack and say, okay, well, you ran this tournament. You need to tell us. You need to find out who did this because someone's got to pay this guy for that.
Right.
And he's like, you really think anything will happen? I said, I'll tell you what. When I'm done fishing here today, I'll try to find out who was here yesterday, and I will call them myself. And I did. Called the tournament director, and I said, hey, there's a guy on the lake. One of your anglers destroyed thousands of dollars of his property. He would like to know who it was. Where it went from there, I don't know, but...
I don't know whose punk-ass kid was skipping 3/4-ounce jigs this bad, but
yeah,
I got yelled at for it. So
you hear it all the time. Like I hear guys, they're 40 houses away. Ding, ding, ding. It's like, well, how many times are you going to do that?
I've missed.
Yeah.
I've dinged.
Yeah.
I've missed, and I don't think I've ever dented anything though.
Right.
Right? Like I think you got to be skipping a jig pretty hard to dent a pontoon barrel.
Yeah.
Or I think that has to be a pretty shitty pontoon barrel.
Well, and I think they hear
doesn't
it.
Excuse the.
That's usually the loudest thing is if you hit a pontoon bunk.
Right.
But,
right.
and those people hear it and they get aggravated. I mean,
I
that's
get it.
one good thing I like about the Champions Tour is we don't, besides last year, we don't fish in the metro. So when you
Or
go
weekends.
up to Whitefish chain,
Yeah.
I don't run into those people up there.
Well, if we fished on Sundays,
Yeah.
you probably would.
Right.
You probably wouldn't be able to fish a lot. Like, I think about that sometimes. Like, do you think the fact that Champs Tour on weekdays helps you?
Helps me, for sure.
As a dock angler?
Helps me for sure.
I've thought about it, but maybe I don't think about it enough.
Because I notice it a lot in practice, like on a Saturday if you're out there practicing. Like half the docks you can't fish because they got 40 kids swimming or they're running jet skis or, they're skiing and they're taking turns so the boats are always coming in and out. But
Do you think the bass are still under them and it's just you can't fish them? Or do you think that kind of
I
kills
think
the bite
I
too?
think they probably move
Yeah. Slide.
sideways or out deeper
Yeah.
or whatever. But
Yeah. Huh.
But-
So, I don't think we've got into this, but, what do you do for work, man? You seem like a hard-working dude.
I'm self-employed.
Yeah.
I'm from the generation that knows how to work.
I appreciate that, dude. That's wonderful.
I own a painting company.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And so I work for myself, which works out very well in the summer. My wife kind of jokes, you can always get the time off when you need it, but when I bring something up, it's I got to work. And I said, well, I know right now what I need to take off for the summer. For Champions Tour, I think they changed the date this year, so all our tournaments all on Tuesday this year. For some reason, I
something
think
like
they
that.
are.
I know at least a couple.
So I know that I'll take off. I'll leave Friday.
Yep.
Fish Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and fish tournament. So I know now, 5 months from now, what I'm going to need off for work.
Yeah.
Where she'll bring it up 2 weeks ahead of time. Hey, I took this week off for my birthday. Can you come up to the lake? No. Schedule out 2 months.
Tournaments,
Yeah,
man.
try to
You
get a couple days off, but
Right.
I don't fish nearly as many tournaments. I used to fish 30 tournaments a summer.
Wow.
All these little tiny ones.
Yeah.
And now my focus is more of, if I can't make $1,000, if the opportunity is not there to make $1,000, I don't even want to go. You just think about how much
I agree with that.
fuel's involved, tackle's involved, food, lodging.
Totally.
I mean,
And those are hard to win too.
if you can't be ahead,
Well, those
if you
local
win,
guys are good too.
Yeah.
It's not like those are just a walk in the
yeah,
They're maybe a little bit easier, but it's not like those are guaranteed.
no.
But so painting though, my grandpa was a painter.
Yeah.
And I helped him paint. There's good money in painting. Because nobody loves to paint. Typically,
No,
it's
what
pretty tedious, dude.
What I tell people is
it's like dock fish. Not everybody loves,
It's the same thing. It's patience. But I tell people what I do for a living is not rocket science. Most people can accomplish it. There's 2 reasons that they don't. Time. You know, you got kids that are in baseball or gymnastics or dance, or you don't have time.
Right.
And what takes me 2 days to do would take someone 5 weekends. So I always tell people that don't look at it as how much you're paying me and how fast I got it done. Look at it as how much time did I save you with your husband? 4 weekends probably. I gave you 4 weekends back.
That's a really good point.
And the other part of it is, like when you're doing new construction, painting, I'm not saying it's the most important part, but it's the easiest thing that can destroy a house. If you send someone into a house that was built for $1 million and they just start throwing paint all over and get it on the ceiling or put the wrong stuff on your cabinets or spill paint on the carpet, I mean, you can make a mess real quick.
Yeah.
And so either they're not confident in their abilities, or I do a lot of stuff in, like, there's a couple neighborhoods that I service a lot where, like, they've got 20-foot tall entryways. Well, these people look at that and go, I don't even know how you're going to accomplish this. Do you need scaffolding or whatever?
Sure.
But like a typical, just a bedroom, most people can get that done if they want to.
Sure.
Do they want to? And so the other way I explain it to people is if you're not a painter, so now you're going to go to the store, you got to buy 2 gallons of paint, you got to buy a roller, a handle, a stick, a tray, a liner, drop cloths. By the time you buy all that stuff, unless you plan on doing more of it in the future, you bought all that stuff for one job, and it's going to cost you the same as if I come in and do it.
Sure.
But
sure.
For me, it's like anything else. If you're a mechanic, you got a bunch of tools.
Yep.
Can I work on my car? Can I work on my boat? These are getting difficult, but
I can't.
in the old days, could you work on a boat motor? Sure.
People could, yeah.
Was it easier if you had all the tools? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, we were up on Vermilion a couple years ago, and Dan had just got his boat out of the shop. Calls me up. He's like, I got to head back to town. I go, what? He goes, I just got my boat out, and something's wrong with it. I go, well, I can be back in 10 minutes. Let me come back, and we'll at least look at it before you drive 4.5 hours.
Is that Evinrude?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, get it back. And it was one of the cables, like the power connector cables, like maybe part of the neutral safety switch or something. But it was like the cable is too short, so when he turned his motor all the way one way, pulled it apart.
Mm.
Well, we had called you guys.
Yep.
He had called Schlip. Like 3 other guys were on the internet, like trying to figure this out.
There was a lot of things that were
And
tough
I
to
said,
figure out
hey.
and for a few things with those
Finally,
engines.
I said, hey, what is this supposed to be plugged into? We looked around, and the other cable had been falling down. I said, oh, but vroom.
NEMA cable?
It was one of those.
Like a
Yep.
little black?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
And
Dumb needed
so I
cable.
I said, this thing looks short. Turn the wheel. And he turned the wheel all the way to one way. So I said, well, if you know that you can't turn your steering wheel all the way one way, he's like, I'll forget. So, all right. So we literally got, I can't remember if it was a paint stick or I got something out of my truck. We put the cable together and duct taped it. I put a stick on there and I duct taped it again. So I'm like, well, maybe it will hold it together. I said, but take it back to the shop and tell them you need more cable. I said, I don't want to pull on it and then break the cable. And now you're really hosed. But it got them through the weekend. But these things are getting so complicated that, you know, my dad used to tell me, I stopped working on cars when you could no longer see the ground looking through the hood.
Oh, fuck. To change a headlight on on my truck or on some trucks is a pain in the ass.
Couple
like
hour
you can't
job.
get anywhere. Like you got to take freaking 8 things off to get
Yeah.
the freaking just to put a little bulb in there.
Yep.
But so painting, do you run like a crew then, or you one man shop mostly?
So I've owned my company for just about 20 years.
Oh wow, dude! Congrats, man.
Started by myself.
That's super impressive.
Yeah, and it's been
20
really
years in business. A lot of people don't make it that long,
Yeah,
dude.
it's been
Cheers
good
to that.
for me.
Dude, that's
So
epic.
I started by myself, and I made more money the first year working for myself than I did working for a private sector. In the first year, I worked part-time because I didn't know where to get any work. So I'd have like a house to do, and it would take me a week and a half, and then I might not have a job for 2 weeks. Then I'd get 3-4 bedrooms. I get those done, and maybe I don't have work for another 2 weeks. And then over time, you figure out how do you get the work? Advertising, marketing, buy leads, whatever.
Yep.
So then, like the third year, I hired one guy. So now I could get twice as much work done. Well, then I started looking at, well, if I can get twice as much work done, and I'm like an analytics guy, so I look, well, this one guy's making me X amount a year. So let's get another guy. Well, then it turned into, I got a call from a company to do new homes. So then I had 2 guys that would go in and do just the trim.
Yep.
Another 2 guys that would paint all the walls and ceilings.
Sure.
And we're just going house to house to house. And I spent 3/4 of that summer on the golf course. Like, I don't even need to work. Well, then it got into, this guy doesn't get along with that guy, so we got to switch crews. And one guy can't work with this guy anymore, so he quits, and you got to find another guy. And it turned into,
You had to lead the show on
I had
on
5
deck a little more?
guys. Yeah, I had 5 guys at one time, and it was more aggravating for me.
Oh, yeah.
It was like running a daycare. Like,
Isn't that weird?
And you can't hire a 20-year-old.
Well,
'Cause they
people
don't-
think that hiring more people solves all their problems,
Nah.
and it's just not the truth. It creates more in a lot of cases.
I have a lot of
Ken.
friends that own businesses, and they all say the same thing. 1, 2, or 3 people, fine. Anything between 3 and about 25, wasting your time. If you're going to scale this company and run where you're doing 5 different builders' houses and you got 30 guys running, where if you're short a guy one day, you got 20 other guys, hey, you go over here. But if you only got like 6 guys and one guy's missing from a crew and you got 3 crews, you can't. So now you got to step in there. And when I was doing that, I would have all my new construction done by my guys, and I'd be out doing bathrooms, bedrooms, kitchen cabinets, that kind of stuff. So if I ever had to stop what I was doing, and it would throw my whole schedule off.
Yeah.
And then I never hired young guys because they don't know what work is. Calling sick all the time.
Most of them don't. I'm fortunate. I'm
There's-
very fortunate how I was raised.
Yeah.
The way I was raised, I guess that
I came from a strong union family, and
I'm still lazy compared to, your non-vets. Don't get me wrong. But
right. But I was raised in a strong union family, and I was taught that when you get a job, you don't call in sick for your first 90 days unless you were killed in a car crash. You go to work. If you got pneumonia, you go to work. They'll send you home, right?
Yep.
But it was just instilled in us that, you're there to do a job. I try to teach my daughter this. She starts at 7. Well, that doesn't mean you're walking in the door at 7. They're paying you to be working at 7.
Sure.
So you need to get there at 6:45, put your stuff in your locker, get your gear on, whatever you're doing. At 7, you're supposed to be working, not getting ready to work. And so I always told people for years, there's 2 kinds of workers from what I've witnessed working in the private sector. But you have company men that are willing to bend over backwards to see this company succeed. Those guys are there early. They're the last ones to leave. They take the least amount of breaks. They have pride in their work. And then we have clock punchers.
Yeah.
These are the guys running in the door at the last minute. Cha-ching. And they're the guys standing at the time clock 5 minutes before the day's over, because as soon as that thing hits 3, and if the company burned down tomorrow, they'd be like, man, whatever.
Right.
And I still, to this day, see the same thing. Like, I've probably employed 25 different people over the years, and it just seems like there's exceptions, but it does seem like a lot of the younger kids, like, they want to be paid what a guy's put 20 years investment into, and they don't understand why does the owner make all this money and I'm only being paid $20 an hour? Well, because I put my ass on the line for years, scraping by, barely paying my bills. And you see a lot more of it nowadays. Like, why does the CEO make $100 million a year? Well, because he's employing 5,000 people, like Amazon, or these Amazon people want to be paid $50 an hour. It's like, well, you didn't have any investment in this company. You didn't put everything you owned on the line, and maybe you could have lost it all. But
Well, I think there's something to be said about that, and I think most employees don't understand the sacrifice of a business owner, the fact that they have to eat last, that they pay everybody else before themselves, and they take all the risk with the business.
Yeah.
But You also see it with your tenured employees where the company takes advantage of that guy.
They do.
So it does go both ways, but the people who think that they don't have to, don't understand the sweat,
right?
The time, the dedication, what it takes to get there, and that I think is just, you're gonna have that when you raise. I feel like it's tough to raise kids in this world because of that. Like, it's a weird world.
So for me, a lot of people think 40 hours is
fucking Epstein client list just came out.
Full-time, 40 hours, that's a full-time work week.
Yeah.
These kids don't know what
Supreme Lure Co. introduces a revolution in bass fishing with our triumphant trio, the Supreme Slug, Lil Slug, and Slaw. Leading the charge is the Supreme Slug, a legend revived after 2 decades. Its unique shape and built-in hook slot redefine tactical brilliance on the water, giving you an edge like never before. But the saga continues with the Lil Slug, a miniature powerhouse that mirrors the majesty of the Supreme Slug. Don't let its size fool you. It packs the punch needed to lure in those elusive bass. And for the ultimate bass feast, there's the Slaw, a craw representation with the same irresistible characteristics as the Supreme Slug. It's bass seduction at its finest, designed to trigger predatory instincts. Exclusively crafted for bass enthusiasts, Supreme Lure Co. brings you a trio that's not just baits, they're bass magnets. Supreme Lure Co. Cast in gold, reel in glory.
60 hours, 70 hours, 80 hours a week. They don't know what that is. I literally used to work 8 to 10 hours a day, and then I'd be done working, and then I have to go to clients' houses to give estimates, collect money, go to the paint store to get materials.
Yep.
Like, a lot of times it'd be 9:30, 10 o'clock, and rolling into the house. My wife's already in bed. She already ate dinner, and it's like...
And so I can relate with that in, like, a kind of an opposite sense of, like, when I sold boats. It looks really easy. It looks really fun. Well, there's a lot of really fun parts about it. But I will tell you, there aren't many weeks. I fished as much as I did, but there wasn't many weeks. I averaged probably 50 to 60 hours a week, and that's with putting 100 plus hours on my motor. And I'm not saying that I'm this hardworking guy, but it's a matter of, like, when you're in sales, just like if you're the business owner taking client jobs, your phone's ringing.
Yeah.
You're after hours.
Yeah.
You just worked with a bunch of people all day, and you have a bunch of emails of people who want quotes, and you can either wait till tomorrow morning to get them the quotes, or you can stay up and be the first guy to get back to them as soon as you absolutely can, right? And I really dedicated myself to that.
And if you're the third guy, maybe they already got another quote, and they, this one looks better, I'm going this way.
That's just it. So you busted. Then COVID comes around, and it's like, okay, now we don't have to work for a sale, but now each sale is missing a prop, a trolling motor. Yeah. So now it's your office therapist, and now it's 70 hours a week, and everything's really hard. So I'm not bitching, but it's everything always looks different from the outside, right?
Well,
until you experience something.
And I laugh because when I went to school as a young kid for auto body. I want to paint cars.
Boats are fun, by the way. Yeah. I mean, that's why I work so hard at it, just because they're freaking cool.
And being a painter helped me because
painting's cool.
Wrecked one of my boats.
Yeah.
And back in the day, I did gel coat, so I fixed the whole thing myself. I got all my flake from Skeeter, fixed the whole thing myself.
Do any gel coating on the side?
Not on the side, no. It's not something I prefer to do, but I did it for many years.
Well, I know my grandpa was really particular about the type of paint he used, and I helped him paint a couple barns. He helped me in college for some cash, and paint a big red barn. I'm sure he had me paint a big red barn, knowing that I didn't have to be that good. It's a big red barn. But learning. He's a really good painter, so I got to learn a little bit of the nuances of different tools for edging versus then how to tape and blah 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 blah. But he was really particular about, like, I don't know, he had some paint company, I think, sell him on some paint, and bought a bunch of it, and it was not good paint. I think it was Pittsburgh paint, he said.
Could be.
I don't know why I remember that, but he said that shit was junk. And he was a Sherwin-Williams man, I think, but I guess, like, not that I care that much, but it is kind of like there's just like what tube brand you're using or whatever tool that is. Paint, I mean, I don't know shit about fuck when it comes to paint, but there's a lot to paint.
I tell my customers I'll use any kind of paint. If I'm buying the paint, I spend about $60,000 a year at Sherwin-Williams. If I'm buying the paint, it's coming from Sherwin-Williams 80% of the time. If I get a customer that says, I want to use Benjamin Moore, that's fine. I know where I can get that. I have accounts all over the place. So, but what I tell people is that's the cheapest part of your job. The labor is where you're spending your money.
Oh, for sure.
There's no reason to buy $200 worth of paint instead of $400 worth of paint to save $200.
Right.
Because I tell people it costs money to make a gallon of paint. Sherwin-Williams has paint they're selling for over $100 a gallon. How do you take that same product and sell it for $18 at a hardware store?
Right.
Well, you got to leave all the good stuff out. So it's not durable. There's no UV protectants in it. You can't clean it. You try to wipe it off the wall, it just comes right off on the rag. Like,
sure.
There's no durability to it. So I always tell people, if you're going to buy your own paint, that's fine. Here's how much you need. If you're not spending like $35 a gallon or more for it, I won't use it. And I just did a job 2 weeks ago. She bought the paint from the hardware store next to Frankie's. And they sold her a semi-gloss. And I said, first of all, you don't want a semi-gloss in an old house. You're going to see every dent, ding, scratch. I mean, it's going to look horrible. And I said, second of all, with the colors you've chosen, probably going to take me 4 coats of paint. So you're going to pay me twice as much to put that on. Well, what should I do with it? I said, I can get rid of it for you at Sherwin. We can just put it in their recycle bin. But I said, I'll go buy the paint, and it's going to cost you like $225.
Yeah. You're trying to do her a solid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now when the job's done, you're left with a better product.
Yeah.
And for me, it's easier to apply than a cheap paint.
Well, it's all about the customer happy at the end, right?
Right.
Like the last thing, so having that conversation up front is so much easier than after. And that's, I mean, same with boat sales, right? There's a lot of sleazeball boat salesmen that'll, knowing that
sell you something you totally don't need.
Yep. And it's better to have that conversation up front with them of like, here's the deal. As a salesperson, hey, I'd love for you to spend extra money, but at the end of the day, you don't need an extra puck up here because your graph communicates. Yeah. Your graph has that built in, that kind of stuff.
Well, it's the same for me. Like I address my clientele by how many kids you have. Do you have kids? Are you 70 years old? Or are you 20 years old? What are you doing with your house? That determines what I'm going to put on your walls. And I'm assuming it's the same for you. If a guy comes in, he's got 5 kids and a wife, and he's looking at a pontoon boat, you don't say, well, hey, we got this bass boat is a much better deal. No, he doesn't need a bass boat when he's got 5 kids and a wife that want to spend time on the water.
Right.
So, I mean, it's the same job. You're steering a customer towards a product that fits for them.
It's customer service. That's what I mean. So painting, it's a physical service, just like rigging a motor. But as an owner, you have a sales aspect of booking those gigs, which is sales, right?
Yep.
And there's a lot of people that think sales is getting a guy to sign on the dotted line, but no, sales is getting
everything before that.
And that guy to tell the next guy, do such a good job that guy tells that guy that he needs to call you.
And then when he has a problem and he calls you, you don't just go, just call Vexus. I don't know. Bye.
Right.
It's, hey, let me make some phone calls. Let me see what I can do for you. And then you take care of him. He's like, hey, bought this boat from this place. Had a problem with it. Oh, you had a problem with a brand new boat? What? They all have problems. But when I went back to this place, they took care of me.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'll remember that.
Right.
So that's me. People say, well, I don't do a lot of exteriors.
Yep.
I did one for a favor this year for a guy we know.
Oh, so exterior painting's not your thing.
It's not. I don't do a ton of it.
Sure.
And the reason I don't is I'm a one-man crew.
Yep.
Now, I'm going to change that probably in the next couple of years because I'm getting too old to do it all myself. But if all you have is exteriors and it rains for 3 weeks.
It's very weather. Yeah.
And so for me, I just got tired of rescheduling all the time. And then maybe you got a house that's supposed to go on the market. And now you can't get it done, so now you lose that one because they have to have it done by a certain time.
So some sleazeball paints it for them and then rain wipes it off. Oh, man.
So I did one house for a guy this year that we know, and I'll still do them. The bad part is they're more profitable than interior painting, but I just don't like the hassle.
Sure.
But
it's crazy.
So, and then I don't like heights anymore. I used to do everything. I used to go up 60 feet on a ladder, and now I get 30 feet off the ground, and it's like, like I'm doing my garage right now. I'm putting a ceiling in it, and I've got scaffolding, and I wish it was a foot wider and a foot longer and not so wobbly, because you're up there. I'm putting paneling. I'm putting this stuff on the ceiling.
Yeah.
You got one hand holding it up, and then you grab your screw gun and you go like this, and the thing's like you're just the whole time. I feel like I'm gonna fall off the thing, but
I'm bad enough with a screw gun, not on some scaffolding.
Yeah.
Jeepers. Huh.
yeah, I've noticed that with you, and I, like I say, I don't know you that well, but I know some of the stuff that you've been through, and so, like, I always tell people you kind of walk a little weird. You got kind of is it a balance issue or?
No.
No?
But do I walk funny? I don't get to watch myself walk, so I appreciate it.
It's you kind of have a bounce,
Okay.
and I thought maybe that was a derivative from when you crashed the boat.
From the accident?
Yeah.
No.
You don't think so?
No.
Huh.
No.
We'll have to go
Well,
through a department store and watch it.
I know I got a bad back, and
Yeah.
that can cause people to walk funny. Because, yeah, I'm all sorts of crooked. I broke a lot of them. So,
Yeah.
Yep. But no, I guess I haven't thought of that excuse yet, but you know. But no, I noted. Yeah, cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just you got like a bounce when you walk.
Okay.
But-
Yeah. No, that's because I wear springs in my shoes.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm just kidding.
No, I
But-
thought maybe it was like you had something happen, like your back could be part of it. But I know you crashed a boat. It was a new boat.
Yeah, brand new.
Brand new.
Yep.
It was a steering failure.
Yeah. So I'll talk about that. I mean,
Yeah.
it was a brand new Triton 216 Fish Hunter walleye boat.
Walleye boat,
With
okay.
a 300 Evinrude G2, and that had the full digital steering.
So just the wire, no cable.
Yep, correct. Yep, and it was all packed in that back part. Well, this is all new stuff, and so one thing at Intune that's really cool that they do, and I realized it really after this happened that it's cool that they do that, because after it happened, all I could think of was a guy and his family out,
Yeah.
cruising, right?
So you're water testing this boat.
So I was water testing this boat. We go to the landing, 71 landing at, the horseshoe chain there. And I grew up on the horseshoe chain. That's my
Okay.
home lake.
Yep.
So I go out in this walleye boat and I shoot that island. I go around Cedar Island and everything's working pretty good. I mean, we even checked the steering before we left with the mechanic, but I'm alone. I've got my life jacket on, kill switch. I go run it out, then that's kind of my deal. I'll run it out, warm it up, all that stuff's working good. Shut it down, check live wells, check graphs, check all that stuff. It's all working. And I'm running back, and I'm going to shoot that gap of the narrow islands out from 71. And I've probably shot that gap 3,000 times in my life. I'm shooting that gap, and all of a sudden, the boat just starts veering to the right into that long point. And I'm doing so this is a 300 on a 216 Fish Hunter, which was one of the faster walleye boats at that time. So I was doing 65, 66, which on the horseshoe chain, it's not a lot of room.
Right.
So I didn't have a lot of time, and then there's no hot foot in a walleye boat. So that throttle's mashed.
Yeah, which there should be.
There should be, okay, because it's like growing cruise control down your highway. The boat starts veering left. I go to boat starts veering to the right. I go to correct left. There's nothing there.
Steering wheel does nothing.
I do 2 full rotations, and by the time I had realized what was going on, I was hitting that point. And next thing I know, I'm just flying through the air.
Yeah.
And then I wake up in the bottom of the boat. And, at first you wake up.
You're like,
I'm
what
dead.
the hell?
I'm
Yeah.
dead. I'm dead. And then I realize I'm alive, and it's like, oh, I'm probably fucking paralyzed or something. Like adrenaline's starting to heat up, and I made a phone call to the mechanics who were back at the ramp with the other 2 boats I was about to test. And I'm like, whatever. Like, I don't even know what I said, but they came and got me in a Tri-Tune, brand new Tri-Tune.
Yeah.
And the only safety item that was missing in the boat was a rope. So they ripped the trolling motor wires out of the front of the boat. They told me this after. I was fucking...
Yeah, you're pretty.
It's weird, that adrenaline rush from that. But, so they told me back and then threw me in an ambulance. And, just remember being in the hospital. But Yeah, 11 broken vertebrae in my back,
Eesh.
3 in my neck, and then the craziest shit was the X-ray of my shoulder blade and ribs. It looked like the X-ray looked like you took a chainsaw down
And just chopped them all up.
Oh, so what's crazy is it's like I jumped this point, like treetops were falling over, like
Right.
14 to 20 foot in the air.
Right.
So I'm like, why didn't I like go into that full windshield boat, right? But if you look at that X-ray, it was like straight down right this side of my body, and I looked at where I ended up landing in the boat, and it was right next to that. There's a bigger passenger consoles that had that 90-degree corner,
So
right below the windshield. So I must have braced and
sideways.
Yeah, so my ribs and shoulder saved my life essentially with that. But yeah, dude, we cheat death daily, man. I mean, car accidents are real common, and it gave me a new perspective. I appreciate every second I can, man.
I tell people in the boating world that if you've got something that goes more than about 45 miles an hour, it should have a foot pedal in it.
Yes, dude.
So you can have your hands on the steering wheel, and not everyone wears a kill switch. I mean, I wear mine in practice, but a lot of guys don't wear a kill switch. At least with a hot foot, if you get thrown out of the boat.
Totally.
And I saw this on Kentucky Lake the first time we were down there. A guy got thrown out of a boat. Now you got a boat going 50 miles an hour like this.
Dude.
And I learned how to stop one of those boats. But if that boat had a hot foot in it, it would be going 3 miles an hour in the circle.
Correct.
Okay. So, and I know hot foots can have problems too. I've seen people where the spring breaks and to the floor and trying to figure out what to do.
Thank God for the toe kick.
But I'm sure if it happens to you, you're like, crap, what do I do?
It's just your steering has worked your whole life for me, right? And all of a sudden it doesn't work, and my foot would have been off the throttle on a bass boat,
Right. But now you got your hands on the steering wheel.
Well,
and you're wide open.
Well, the thing was kind of steering. Like, it was going to the right, and I was steering it left, but it was taking me.
So did they figure out what's wrong with it then?
So this is what makes the marine industry a shit show, and I don't even give a shit talking about this, is there's too many cooks in the kitchen, dude.
Yeah.
So
designing all this shit.
The motor company is different than the boat company. That's different than the trailer company. That's different than the dealership. That's different than the dealership's insurance company. And at the end of the day, I never thought about suing anybody. I've never thought about it in my life, dude. It's not how I was raised. It's not,
right.
It's not me.
Right.
In fact, like, I'm the opposite of that person's. But for me, it was like, hey, this was far from my fault. This is fucked up. And I don't know what this is going to look like for the rest of my life.
20 years from now, you'll be in a wheelchair because of that.
Could be.
You don't know.
You don't know. And at the end of the day, it made me realize how kind of fucked up the justice system is when you have lawyers when you have more than two parties that each have their own interests in mind.
Yeah. And it's not your interest.
Well, I get it. Like, you've got to protect your assets, whatever that might be. And at the end of the day, I healed up pretty good. That was partially the problem, is I'm not a guy who's going to act like more of a gimp than I am.
Yeah.
Okay? I'm not that type of person. I'm going to, if anything, I'm going to act the other way. I'm going to act better than I actually am. Like, I'm going to, so that probably didn't help me either, but I wasn't after anything really. But when you're dealing with a big company like that, you got a lot, they could flood you with paperwork. So I was kind of fortunate to have, I think, a good attorney. So it didn't cost me anything, but ended up just getting my medical stuff covered through workman's comp. And at the end of the day, though, I could be bitter about that, Arnie.
Yeah.
But I'm fucking alive, dude.
I run my life.
You know what I mean?
I run my life under a saying of, I live a stress-free life. I don't let. There's not much that bothers me.
I wish I could do that.
So, like I try to teach my kid this too, is she worries a lot. Well, what about this and what about that? I'm like, you have no control over any of that. You worry about the stuff that you have control over.
Yeah.
Everything else, you just deal with it.
Right.
You know.
That's really good advice, dude.
Yeah. That's how I live my life. Is what I can control, I worry about. Things I don't have control over.
Can you write that on my hand?
There's not. Dane can write it on your arm.
He can. He actually can permanently do it.
Yeah.
Good thinking. You got any ink?
I'm covered in it. Yeah.
Cool, dude. Have you had Dane do any?
From here, all the way up, all the way into here, my back. No, I actually talked to him a couple years ago at the golf tournament, and I need to get some stuff recolored, touched up.
Sure.
And then I had some ideas, and he's like, yeah. He's like, I'm not even that busy. And so then I called him
busy.
a couple weeks later, and he's like, yeah, like April. And I'm like,
dude, he's like,
it's August.
When did he say he's not busy? He's like 6-8 months out.
And then I
get
so pissed because I just had a bunch of work done. And I would drive. He's over by Tonka somewhere, right?
Yep.
I would drive over there. That's not a problem. But like I keep seeing
on Waypoint.
Keep seeing by on his page. Oh, Dane's got an opening for tomorrow, and it's like, wow, I'm busy tomorrow. Like,
oh, it pisses him off too because you got 6-8 months of paint jobs booked out, right? Yeah. And then all of a sudden, it's not a matter of for him. It's they have to show up and get the tattoo.
Right.
It's not. Hey, I'm coming here to paint. Like, what the heck?
Yeah, and they're all different. Like, I wouldn't put him in the regular category because he does a bunch of other stuff. But when you have a person that's just a straight tattoo person, they're a different breed. Like, most of my work was done by my cousin.
Sure.
They're never in a hurry. They want to reschedule because they want to reschedule. They don't think two bits about it. And it's
Dane is very unique then.
Right, because
he's type A. He's kind of, yeah.
That's what I say. I wouldn't put him in the strict tattooer category. But I know they're all different. Like the last one I went to.
He's kind of a special dude. He's kind of a very unique dude. He comes from a construction. Like, he's good. He built this bench in like 3 hours for me.
Yeah.
But anyway, sorry.
But like the last place I went to, they take a $500 deposit.
Oh, really?
And if you don't show up, if you had
I think he does some.
If you had an hour session booked, and they're charging $125 an hour, and you don't show up, they take that money.
Yeah.
So they're not out the money. So it's like,
how else do you kind of start to police that? You know, that's
right. And so that girl I had doing my last stuff, she said the only way we let you get away with that is if you called like a week ahead of time and said, I'm not going to be able to make that.
Okay.
Then they try to fill that spot, and if they can fill the spot, then they don't charge you.
Sure. Hey,
But every time I see Dane, Dane's got time tomorrow. Ding, 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 ding. Yeah, me.
Oh, it's crazy. Good for him, man. I know he loves doing that, but I think he loves building rods, I think, even more. Yeah. It's crazy. But, yeah, dude.
Yeah, now we're getting another series of them. You're doing like a whole nother series of rods.
So he's kind of going a cool approach, like very specialist, like oriented. Okay. Because, you've got your bigger companies are doing your really good, versatile, multi-purpose rods. And It's not that he can't do that, right? But it's what makes him different. And, like, what about us guys who really like fishing a tube or really like fishing a jig this way? And
with a specific weight.
We're very intimate with this technique or this confident style of fishing. Mm-hmm. And Dane and I have played enough because we're friends, like, with different rods and different blanks where I've had a lot of fun, like, figuring out what I like the best, right? And he's had fun working with different people and, like, figuring out some of these really specialized items. Like that hair jig rod was kind of like the first light bulb for that.
Yeah, and it seems like everyone wants one of them.
If you're going to throw a light bait far, it's the best rod. I've seen it doing it. Now, it could be a hair jig, it could be a swim bait, anything when there's spooky, shallow stuff.
Yeah.
So, but nobody was making that, right?
Right.
So it's not like, it fits in some category. So it's like what's cool is I don't know if they'll sell as well as the hair jig rod because that thing was just killer.
It seems like everybody wants one of them,
but like for a technique that I really like to do, I would have loved to have somebody who I knew was really good at that or something that
where you could tell them this is what I need, and then they can go, oh, okay, I can build that.
Yeah,
I know how to get to that.
Like I remember when I was a kid, I bought a Powell football jig rod. You know why? Because I wanted a rod for football jig rods, and they were the only company that made a rod specifically designed for football jig rods. Well, come to find out, it wasn't the best football jig rod in the world, but it's what I was after.
Yeah.
I'm always looking for
Yep.
that sort of thing, because everybody's 7-foot medium heavy is a little different, Arnie, as you know.
Yep.
So it's like, okay, are we talking dock skipping 7-foot medium heavy, or like frogging 7-foot
Yeah, like,
medium
so I was invited to join the Kistler team by Walters. And I'm not afraid to spend money, but I'm always trying to get a deal. So I'm like, it has to make sense. If I'm going to buy $5,000 worth of rods,
Yep.
I'm not going to pay retail for them. Like, I used to laugh at guys who are like, I'm on the such and such team. Well, do you get a discount? Yeah, 15%. And I'd always say, I'll bet you $10 I can call that company and say, hey, I'm not one of your team members. I want to buy 10 rods, but I'm not going to buy them from you unless I get 15% off. I'm getting that same deal you're getting. That's not really a sponsorship deal. So I'm like, Walters, what are we talking here? And so he told me what the numbers were, and I'm like, okay, that makes sense. I'm willing to try them. And so I was used to a 6.6 rod, medium heavy, in the Abu Garcia. They don't make a 6.6. You have to custom order them. So I did. I said, well, I'll start with 2. I'll custom order 2.
They don't make a lot of 6.6s in general,
Right.
Arnie.
So custom order, more expensive, because back when I first joined Kistler, Trey Kistler made all the custom rods.
So you could custom order from them.
You can.
I didn't know that.
And you still can.
Sure.
And I'm not sure that he's still building them all with his 2 hands, because the company has grown quite a bit.
Sure.
But I get these 6.6 medium heavies. They're way too stiff. I can't use them.
Yeah.
So then I call there, and I talk to, they have a guy that works there. His name is Ruben. And I call him and I said, hey, here's what I'm used to using. It needs a little more tip. And then he said, I think you need the 7-foot light medium heavy. Same backbone, a little more tip to it. Because I do like a roll cast, and you've got to have that tip to kind of fling things.
Well, skipping a 1/8 or 16th ounce tube or a lighter bait on a bait cap.
Yeah.
So Ron Mayer's signature series with Vocelka, I'm curious to see.
Like,
so you need to bring your Kistler and bend it next to whatever Ron's is whenever we get to summer. Because I'm curious your thoughts, because you've thought through that quite a bit too.
But I'm a short guy, so that's why I always wanted a 6.6 or even a 6-footer. But now I'm used to a 7-footer, so it's fine.
Sure. Yeah. No, I get that.
But
I started on 6.6s, baby.
And then so I got tired of watching these guys kick my ass with the umbrella rig.
Okay.
And so last
hate that.
Last year, well, it was after the Mille Lacs tournament.
Did you figure it out?
I haven't done it yet.
Okay.
I'm working on it. I've got the
I
got the equipment now, but
sure.
So that last TOC we had in Mille Lacs.
Oh, when Noah and Figgy were blowing for blowing.
I ended my day next to Noah.
Oh, you got.
And we were rotating on like 5 big boulders in this small area, and I had 2 of them. And he finally said, "Hey, I haven't seen you catch one off that one. Can I fish that one?" I said, "Go ahead." I'm like, I can't get bit on it. He threw that damn thing out there, and then he boat flips a 5-pound smallie. I'm like, I just fished that for 10 minutes.
Oh, that's
like,
excruciating.
So I was like, I'm tired of watching these guys. You know, they're catching them on these.
Oh, I'd have bought
rigs.
$100 for
So I'm like, all right.
After that.
So I start doing my research. Like, well, I know in Minnesota you can't have a dozen hooks. Like, what are these guys using? So I find the Hog Farmer Minnesota rig. So I buy some of them. And then I thought, I don't have a rod to throw these on. So I'm like, I need like a 7'6" or a 7'10" or something, heavier rod. And I start asking guys, what are you throwing on that for line? Well, it's all over the place. Oh, I straight fluoro, 20-pound fluoro, or 40-pound. And then I hear, oh no, you can't do that. You got to use braid and then fluoro, and that's how I do it, and this and that. So I'm like, I've got the rod.
18 to 20-pound fluoro works great.
And the reels.
Braid works great too. You just need more flexible rod.
Yeah. I think for me, it's going to be more of a braid deal. This will be weird for you.
Was Noah banging it into a boulder? That's my only quick question.
Don't know.
Next to him,
I watched him catch 3 of his
beat it into the boulder? Did you see a deflection? So I
did
think
not.
there might be something to that with the rig.
I just saw he was fishing right next to me on the boulder I was just fishing. And now I'm fishing another boulder, and I see him hook up, and I'm like, what? And I've got nothing in my boat that can imitate what he's doing. So I'm like, well.
I wasn't throwing a rig that day, and I wasn't getting bit a whole lot.
Nope.
Caught a big one, but that's about it. Anyway,
So,
I didn't mean to take you off your track.
What's odd for me is up until 2 years ago, I used nothing but mono.
What?
Only thing I ever threw braid on was a frog rod.
I'll be honest. That sounds insane.
I would go through 3,000 yards of Trilene XL every season. Because for
spool it every
any rod that I touched during a tournament got respooled, whether I used it for 10 casts or half the day. But I got tired of fighting it.
As anglers, we develop special bonds with our equipment. There's something magical when you find that perfect jig rod and reel combo for a technique that elevates your confidence on the water. Whether it's a perfectly balanced, crisp, and sensitive jig rod that gives you the highest level of control over your bait, allows you to feel every grain of sand, every bite, and allows you to drive that hook clean, or a rod with the perfect action and taper that seems to keep your chatterbait, swim bait, or whatever it is in the back of the bass's head where it belongs no matter where you throw it, or a rod that allows you to effortlessly cast a lighter bait you used to cuss at on your old combo. These types of magical bonds are rare to find in a mass-produced sweatshop, which is why Vocelka Fishing and Customs came to existence, with the sole purpose of bringing you closer to your passion by enhancing the bond with you, your rod, and the bass. Confidence is everything in bass fishing, and there's no bigger boner buster than losing a big fish, not feeling like you can present your bait correctly. The list goes on and on. Mr. Vocelka is a full-blown artesian craftsman who can build you the perfect rod, no matter the size or action, custom, exactly the way you want it. He also has a wide variety to choose from right on his website, including fan favorites like the 8-foot hair jig rod, the drop shot rod, swim bait rod, the chatter chicken rod, the MH workhorse, and more. Even ice fishing. You do the whole frozen Swiss cheese thing, the ice fishing. Seen grumpy old men? Well, you can send that jiggle stick back to the antique store because Mr. Vocelka builds custom ice rods in all sizes and actions too. So head on over to his website, vocelkafishing.com. That's VOCELKA fishing.com to enhance your confidence on the water, feel your passion, and catch more bass, baby.
So I would go through,
I bet you had to use a stiffer rod for everything, even with that. It's stretchy.
I think that was part of that 6.6 medium heavy was a little bit stiffer.
Perfect for that, probably.
Yep.
Yeah.
But then I
Thank
would
you.
go through 10 bottles of KVD line conditioner
Oh,
every year.
spooling's annoying to do
So,
all the time.
Yeah, I would spend, the night before a tournament, I'm doing 10 rods
Oh.
with, 150 yards of mono. And then
10 liters makes me
and then
fucking
throw it
panic.
away. Yeah,
Oh.
so now I use braid to fluoro,
Yep.
and I go through a tenth of the line.
Yeah.
I go through like 2 spools of fluoro a summer,
Well, when you're doing the leader thing.
and the braid stays on there the whole damn year.
Oh, dude, sometimes it stays till the next year.
Yeah,
Are you doing the FG knot?
no,
Oh, thank God. I hate that freaking knot.
I use
Sorry, FGers.
I use a modified Alberto.
Me too. Yep.
So and Courts taught it to me.
Or
I started with a uni,
Yep.
and I kept breaking it.
Yeah, it breaks.
Part of that is because I'm used to setting the hook like a gorilla.
Sure.
And I've learned that a sweep will do just fine. But I'm used to point, and I kept breaking my knots. So I run into Courts on the whitefish chain. I go, hey, do you do braid to fluoro? Yeah. So, well, what do you use for a knot? That's an Alberto. I changed it a little bit. I said, oh, can you show me? So he's like, yeah. I said, no, can you show me? Oh, yeah. So I jump in his boat. He lays the line out. Here's how you do it. And since I've done that, I think I've maybe broke 3-4 fish where the knots come undone. My own fault. But now I use it ice fishing because now I'm using fluoro when I go ice fishing instead of just using ice mono or whatever. And
Sure.
So
I
and
trusted
it's
100% on
way
spinning
more
reel.
feel. Like
Yeah.
when you're fishing shallow, you can feel and pick it up a lot more. When you set the hook, like I always tell people, I used to fish 17 to 20 pound mono on docks, and everyone's like, "How do you fish mono but you don't break your line all the time?" I'm like, "Well, I'm
pretty
using
abrasive
17 to 20 pound tests," and they're
Mono's
like,
more
"Oh,
abrasive resistant than I think
Yeah.
braid and fluoro when it comes to like sawing on stuff. It's
Right.
supposed to be.
Well, I'd find out they're all using 10, 12 pound tests. I'm like, well, yeah, I mean,
Who's doing that?
you can't. You got to have a heavy enough equipment to, when you set the hook, they got to start coming. You got to bring them
The
out.
fish will own you.
Yeah, if you give
there's
them any
zebras
line,
there,
yeah, forget it.
done.
Yeah.
Done.
So yeah, I think that's helped me quite a bit in feel. And then I went from using a $99 rod to $650 rods. It's a big difference.
Oh, dude, it is. Makes a world of difference. I think when I started fishing, right, I wanted the nicest reel, and I didn't give a shit about the rod. And then, like, as I got older, I'm talking, like, first baitcaster years, right? And
Yeah.
then you start to learn about, like, now I'm, like, the opposite.
So I'll ask you, how old are you?
I'm 30.
Okay, so I'll turn 50 this year.
No way, dude. You're like
Yeah.
the Jennifer Aniston of,
So-
like, dudes. You don't age. You look fucking 37.
I
and a half.
started with Silstar.
Do you do
baitcaster.
anti-aging, like, methods?
Nope.
You look, do people tell you that at least?
Yeah, so the men in my family, my father's passed now, but when my dad was probably 70, he probably looked like he was maybe 50. And then he had cancer, so the last couple years were rough on him. When he died, he looked old.
Sure.
But up until he had the medical problems, he looked much younger. Now, the women in my family didn't get so lucky. My sister's 2 years older than me, but she looks quite a bit older.
Quite a bit. Sure.
Yeah, and my mom looks old.
Sure.
So,
Sure. Well, you got the Jennifer Aniston genes. Like, that's fucking beautiful. Yeah, well played,
So-
dude.
so I grew up, my grandparents taught me how to fish, and I'll tell you,
Mine too. That's awesome.
one of my most vivid memories that really stuck with me was we have a lake place in Lindstrom on North Center. It's a campground.
Yep.
I've been there since I was like 2 years old.
Sure.
And my grandparents used to have the cabin down by the lake. It's the only cabin on the whole resort. I'm trying to catch this 5-pound bass on a bed with my Zebco 202 and like a 4-foot fiberglass rod.
Remember, like it was yesterday, I bet.
Everything in my box. I can't catch this thing. I go tell my grandma, I want to catch this fish, and she gives me a leech.
So I need a white. You're like, I need a white tube, Grandma.
Yeah. So I run to the
leech.
cabin, got
Yeah.
my rod, and so she goes, they can't resist these, and she puts this leech on my hook, and I bring it back over there. That thing walked over, sucked it up. I set the hook, and I thought that was the neatest thing I ever saw at that time. I was probably 5 or 6 years old.
Dude, that's cool.
But my grandparents used to pick me up from daycare, and they would drive me to a lake in Centerville, Minnesota. Centerville Lake. Across the street from Centerville is Peltier. We used to
heard of that
park.
one.
We used to park in a parking lot on Centerville, walk across the street. So my grandparents were very poor, so they looked at fishing more of a necessity for survival. Like they ate a ton of fish. So
Sure.
back in these days, you could catch 100 bullheads. You could, I could, my grandma, my grandpa. So they would pick me up from daycare so they could get another 100 bullheads.
They'd eat them?
Yeah. So
they taste any good?
they do taste good in the spring and in the winter. They taste terrible in the summer because they're bottom feeders.
Yeah, they ate them anyway, though?
No, they'd catch them all in the spring and then freezer them. So
yeah, I got you.
they'd bring me to this place, pick me up from daycare, and I would just hold my rod like this. My grandpa would put a worm on it. He never fished. Throw it in, big egg sinker and about 3 feet of line, and cast it out, and you just wait for your line to move. Reel in a bullhead, hand it to my grandpa. He'd take them off. Then he'd skin them and gut them right there and throw them in the cooler.
Right
and when
there.
the cooler was full, we went home. And I remember that multiple times.
Yeah.
And so that was part of my introduction to fishing. And then at this resort, when I was a kid, there's a lot of old timers there that used to go fishing early in the morning.
Sure.
I'm like 7 years old, getting up at 5 o'clock, and my parents would wake up at 8, and they'd be like, "Where's this kid at?" Well, I would go down to the dock and say, I'd see one of these old timers going out fishing, and like one guy used to like to troll for northerns. Another guy would go crappie fishing. One guy would go bass fishing. So they'd be like, well, do your parents know you're down here? Yeah. They'd take me fishing for a half a day and then come back and whole resort's looking for me. So I learned a lot, fishing with them people, like just techniques and stuff. And just ever since, I had my own boat when I was 14. Bought my daughter a boat. I didn't buy it. I found it, did all the research, and then my dad wanted to pay half of it. Well, then my father-in-law said, well, if you're paying half, I'll pay the other half. So those two bought her first boat, and it was very reminiscent of my first boat. 14-foot Alumacraft with a 9.9 on it.
14-foot Starcraft with a 20 Evinrude on it.
Mine was a Sears.
Well, I actually had a 12 with a 5.5
Sears.
on it first, but yeah.
Anyway. I had a 14 with a 9.9 Evinrude.
Man, I can just hear me pulling my, yeah, dude.
And I would burn a 6-gallon tank of gas every single weekend, and my parents would fill it right back up. And my daughter got basically the same boat, and she got the same rules. If there's white caps, you can't go. And if I find out you're not wearing your life jacket, we pull it out for the summer. That's it.
So your dad wasn't much of a fisherman?
Nope. My dad, it's kind of weird. So my dad grew up in Bald Eagle Lake, and he was a member of the ski team.
Yep.
And
he's a skier.
He never told me anything why, but sometime in his early life, he became afraid of the water. So all the years that I've owned boats, never was in one of my boats. He would go out on a pontoon. That was it. But
really,
my parents owned one boat my whole life, like a closed bow runabout, where like the point of the boat's closed in.
Yeah,
and
the ones you can't bass fish off the front.
Yeah. We owned that for a short period of time, and I look back on that as I think that was just my dad trying to say, well, let's try a boat, but then he would never take us out in it, and it never ran, and
sure.
So we didn't have it very long. But my mom fished from shore a little bit, but wasn't really a fisherman. But
my parents aren't fishermen either. My grandparents took me camping as a kid, and like when you say those stories, it was like I felt like you're speaking to childhood Aaron Teal because like I would get mad if we wouldn't pack a lunch and we'd have to go back for lunch or like all of that stuff. And I would fish off the dock if we were back and talking to, if there was a boat coming in, I was at the dock. Did you see what they caught? Like I wanted to know whatever was in that water. I wanted to know, man.
Yep.
I still do.
I used to go down in the morning. It'd be 5-6 o'clock in the morning before anyone was down there. Like the resort we're at now has floating docks. But back when I was a kid, everyone had their own dock. Mm-hmm. And we had a lot of pads on our shoreline, and I literally would go down there with a frog and throw it between every single dock and catch bass all morning long. And then by the time the people all got down there, then they'd quit biting or whatever. But
do you remember your first kind of like bass lure that you got into? I can think of like a couple of them.
I used to throw a spinnerbait a lot. I always liked a spinnerbait.
That was a good one.
And it was a Stanley, and for some reason, it was like a Vibra something. They vibrated way more than the rest of them. And now you can't find them anymore. But
see, I knew nothing about that. And I knew Cabela's had these dollar spinnerbaits. So I could just like, I could mow a lawn and I could go buy 20 spinnerbaits. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I would go, and I didn't understand the nuances to it, but I would research like, so I'd start changing the blades. And then I'd learn, oh shit, there's something to like, which arm is there and color and blah, 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 blah. Do you remember the Moss Boss though?
Yeah.
That was my first.
Yep.
My uncle showed me that.
Yep.
And then the silver minnow. I wonder if anybody's...
Johnson silver minnow.
Yeah.
Gold, they had a gold version.
And I'd put a plastic worm on the back, I remember, and it would make it look cooler in the water.
And I have a bait that I use quite a bit now that buddy of mine introduced us to when we were little kids, and he learned it from his parents. And we used to ride our bikes into town, which I think is funny because it's like I'd never let my kid take her bike and just head into town. Here's $10. Here's $10. Head into town. We'd ride our bikes like 5 miles into town. And go to this little bait store and we buy these buzz baits, and they were called mini mics. They were like a 1/4 ounce short shaft buzz bait. Back then they had plastic 3-blade props on them.
I remember they made the Strike King 3-bladed one. And that was one that I had at a young age, but that was a metal prop.
Yep, and we used to throw the shit out of those, and And I use one now very similar to that. Obviously, they don't have those anymore, but what I like about them, and I also learned another guy uses kind of the same thing, but he modifies his. They weigh so little, they're hard to cast, but you barely have to move them, and they just go so slow. So if you're throwing a buzz bait and they're short striking it, you throw this little one out there, and it's just going so much slower. It get it almost every time.
It's a nasty trick, dude.
Yep.
I appreciate you sharing that. Like, that is low key a nugget. How'd you get it to slow down? Did you put like a toad on it, or like a little?
No, there's just hardly any weight to it.
Oh, sure, but how do you? Like, the problem with that is how you get. If you could get it to cast and move that slow, that'd be really cool, right?
Yeah, you'd have to put like maybe a chunk of floating worm or something on it to get a little. Like, I know a lot of guys that throw hair jigs, and they'll cut a little piece of a Senko off and put it just to get that little extra weight.
I got a weird one for you. While we're on that.
Yeah, see, I've never seen anything like that.
That's because that's the only thing I've ever thought of, Arnie. And we're not even gonna. That's gonna stay between us. No one is even gonna see it. But
behind this water bottle.
But yeah, how do you get something to move as slow that's a little heavier?
Yeah, that'll slow you down a little bit.
So when it's a little windy and you want to throw an 1/8 ounce instead of a 1/16, but you want to be able to, or it's calm and you just want to be able to bomb it further.
Right.
That's how it started before the hair rod.
Yeah, and then I look at this guy. I used to throw a ton of these.
Oh, wait, the torpedo.
Tiny torpedoes. Yep.
That, I don't know anybody who throws one of those.
And my favorite one was always the clear one.
Okay.
With the red front, and then it had like the bones on the top.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know exactly the one you're talking about. I think I have a Boy Howdy in that.
Then my grandpa always threw Lazy Ikes. Remember them?
I do. I have like some antique ones. I don't know.
They would throw,
soul who's thrown one though.
One like this big, they would troll for northerns and walleyes, and then they'd have like a medium-sized one he would throw for bass, and then he had these little tiny ones they would catch crappies on, and it's all the same bait, just different sizes. And
well, like the Wigglewort's the thing that catches the bass like on the way home from the bar. The Lazy Ike's like catches them like crawling home from the bar.
Yeah.
It's like drunken crankbait.
Yep.
That's great. It's weird how many lures that people don't talk about anymore, don't throw anymore, that probably slay.
The best part is some of them are coming back, like the hula popper and the jitterbug. You didn't see a jitterbug for 20 years, and all of a sudden those are back on the market.
Oh yeah, different versions.
Slightly tweaked a little bit, but
you ever mess with those? I have a couple baits. I don't throw them enough, but I know some guys catch them on them. There's only so many lures you could throw on the freaking lake.
Yeah. But like I started throwing swim jigs last year.
Dan just came out with a new one. Dan.
Yeah,
that the one.
That is a. I'm trying to think of the company you got that from. It's like Stealth or something.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a bait that they were going to stop making, and I believe he bought all the rights.
Bass Assassin. No, was it Bass Assassin?
It's a Stealth something or other. I forget what it's called, but
I'm butchering it. But we're Lethal Weapon.
Lethal Weapon. So those were his favorite.
They were the white ones.
And then he couldn't get them, and he was like, "What's going on here?" And they were basically like, "Yeah, we're not making them anymore. Hold on,
my two bed anymore.
Hold on?" So it sounds like he bought all that, and he's got all the rights to it and everything. And I don't know. It's a great bait.
It's a good looking swim
I've got
jig.
A bunch of them, and
I'll
throw them just plain. And then I'll throw them with like a half tactical minnow.
Yeah.
Just cut. I don't know what it is with that tactical minnow, but I throw it on my chatterbaits, and I think it gives you
that.
It gives you enough action, but it doesn't take away from what the chatterbait's doing.
Correct. It's not too big a paddle.
Right. And then I see guys that are throwing like where it's like a stick bait with just the twin straight tails, and it's adding weight, but those two little tails just aren't doing a whole lot. Yeah. And you see the guys throwing the big paddle tails on them, and I think it takes away from what you're actually doing with the chatterbait.
I agree with that. And then I talked to a guy like Keith Tuma, who puts a jerky J on the back of a 3/4 ounce because it makes the bait
just all over the place.
Right? So it's like I agree with you in the fact that when I look at some of these straight tail trailers, it doesn't do much for me.
Right.
Because I like tackle minnow and a Zoom Z Craw Jr. Cross style, minnow style.
Yep.
That's what I like on a chatterbait. That's what I get the most bites on. That's what I have confidence in. And then when I put a straight tail on or something, I'm not throwing it as many casts. It's just a confidence thing.
Because in your head, it's not going to work.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that way. Maybe a white tube's that way for me. And, it's not like fishing's never a game you're right all the time. So
Right.
I do have to pee. Fuck. I'm sorry.
Go.
Well, you mentioned advertising and stuff. Have you found like any advertising that works particularly good for like painting?
So I've tried pretty much all of the lead services, and over the years I stuck with a couple. The problem is there's one conglomerate that's buying all the little ones up.
Yep.
And they just ruin them. So like I used to use a local one called Thumbtack. And how it works is like if you're looking for a painter, you go to them and say, I need some quotes. They'd send me Aaron, the city you live in, what you're looking to get done, when you're looking to get it done. And I look at that and go, yeah, that works for me. Click on it. I used to pay like $12. Now I get Aaron Teal, your address, your phone number, your email, whatever you put in for a contact. And all that does is give me the ability to contact you. Those used to cost me like $12. Now they're $100 because another company bought them.
Per one?
Yeah.
For one.
Yep. And so I don't use those anymore. I use a company called Networks. Like I just did a bid today. That's what I was doing before I came here. Mm-hmm. I paid $90 for a lead. But with them, I get exclusive leads. So I'm the only one that gets it. If I don't, like, I have to put on there that I've met with them, I sold the job, I'm doing the job, I got paid or whatever. If I meet with them, but I haven't put down that I got the job within like a week, then they'll sell it to somebody else.
Sure.
So you've got like a week to get a bid and close it.
Sure.
This guy called me, or I got the lead on Saturday. I called him. He wanted to meet on Wednesday. And I said, well, busy Wednesday. Can you meet this weekend? Oh, yeah, Sunday, 1 o'clock. I'm like, okay. Because I only got so much time to close that. Yep. Now, if they give the lead to someone else, now I got competition.
Right.
So you pay more for those leads, but a lot of lead services, you might only pay $50, but they're sending them to 5 different guys. So if you're the 5th guy that calls someone, usually they're irritated by that point. Like, how many people did they give my number to? It's like, and so a lot of times you can't even get in front of them. Like I already got 3 guys signed up. I don't want to talk to anymore.
Sure.
But I just did sign up this week with Voice Search.
Okay.
So it's a company that gets you on like Alexa, Siri.
Oh, wow.
Hey Google.
Yeah.
And there's like 80 search engines that they put you on. And I didn't think the cost was, it cost me $800 to sign up. And what that is for them to go through like what I have for my website right now, make sure everything's good, and then they'll start setting that up on all these search engines. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then they said that takes about 2 weeks, and then once they get that set up, that's what Google uses for. So when you search on Google is searching on these other sites to get your information.
Yeah.
They don't actually host information. They're getting it from someone else. So
Right.
They said, you need to get all these set up. And so I was paying a company to do that already. And so when they pulled it up, I sat in front of my computer while they ran it from their side. And they showed me, I'm paying this other company $200 a month. And over the last 2 years, they've only got me on 10 sites. And he goes, those are all the free ones. So you're paying us $800, but like every one of these sites is like $14.99 to sign up, $10.99, $20. So of that $800, the guy said, we're probably going to keep half of that, and the other half's going to be to pay to get you on all these other sites.
Yep.
Then we turn around after that's all set up, and we sign you up for Siri, Alexa, Google. So now when someone goes on their phone and says, hey, I'm looking for a painter in Blaine, goes to Google, Google's just going, psh, and then they find all your stuff here. And so that's going to cost me $129 a month. Well, if I close one job a month because of that, I'd be more than happy with that.
what percentage of your jobs come from that versus, say, referrals versus how much room you have for more jobs, would you say? And this is like, I sell advertising and, help with boat sales, so I'm just always curious,
80% of my work is just word of mouth. Mm-hmm. Hey, I got your number from so-and-so, I'd like a quote. And then probably 10% is from lead services.
Sure.
And then the other percent comes from someone looking on the internet or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I'm not a computer guy, so I have a website, but I don't do anything with it. Like, I ain't got time to add smart. Photos to it.
Well, you got to focus on your strengths.
And so I'm not necessarily looking for more work. What I'm looking to do is increase revenue with the same amount of work.
Sure.
So I'll end up doing, like, I talk with my paint rep, and he's always telling me my prices are way too cheap. And it's like, well, I look at how much I make an hour. I don't know how guys ethically charge more than that.
What is the going average hourly rate for a painter?
I don't know what the hourly rate is. I charge by the square foot.
Oh, sure.
So I'm at like $1.50 a square foot.
Okay.
And my rep's telling me I should be at $3. I'm like, no. So I'm charging like $450 to paint a bedroom. And he's telling me that should be closer to $1,000. I'm like, nobody's paying $1,000 to paint a bedroom. So I said,
maybe on Tonka.
I said maybe they are, but I don't see that as a long-term goal. I said I get a lot of work because I'm known as a guy that does very good work at reasonable prices. I don't take any money up front till my customers are happy. Like, I don't take, hey, I need 30% for materials. I don't.
Has it ever screwed you?
No.
Good. Well, then that's a reason to keep doing it.
And so I said, so I don't want to be known. So for me, excellent work, reasonable rates is a long-term projection. Versus, yeah, this guy does great work, but holy shit, is he expensive. I don't think that gets you long-term.
Depends on the clientele, right? I don't disagree with you, and I think if you've got a niche that works, I'm not arguing with you, right? But the only scenario I see that being good at is if you got a nice Tonka house, right? And they're like, this guy did great work, and we don't care about the price. We wanted great work.
And I run
guess what? Our neighbors want great work, and they don't care about the price, but they want the best,
Yep.
And if you could get that referral train going, that is maybe long term. But I don't know if you could, and it's hard because you don't want to say this job's $850, this job's $450, right? Because then now it's like, now you're screwing the $450. Or now you're screwing the $850 folk if they find out that you'll do the same bedroom for $450. So that's a tough game, and boats were the same way. Okay, you want to tell me that I need to charge $4,000 more on every boat?
Yeah,
we're already charging $12,000 more on every boat.
Yeah.
Oh, let's go back 3 years. We're charging You got to sell the boat, too. You got to sell the paint job.
And I'll laugh at some of that because, like, I know Frankie personally. I talked to him quite a bit. And so the one time I was in there and I was like, you sell one of these boats, what do you make? He's like, $1,500. I'm like, nah. And he's like, yeah, we make $1,500 a boat. The goal is to sell as many boats as we can and have them serviced here because that's where we make the money. And I'm like, there's no way you make $1,500 on a boat. It's like, yeah. So then years go by, and I buy my first new boat. So I'm fishing Clearwater in a 15-year-old Nitro that's just beat to shit. I had a 200 carbureted motor on it. I mean, scratches, gouges, cracks, just beat to shit. And the old Skeeter rep runs into me and says, I've heard of you before. I said, oh, okay. Why are you driving that piece of shit? And I said, oh, it gets the job done. And he's like, what if I could put you in a new boat for half price? And I go, well, you could do that? He's like, yeah, get a hold of me next spring. And I thought, he's just checking his jaw, right? So I go to buy a new Nitro the next spring, and I call the dealership. Now, my boat is in a place like this. It's locked in. 4 feet of snow outside, I can't get it out. I call this place, and I said, hey, I'm looking at trading a boat. I'm going to buy a Z9 at the time. And I said, I've got it all priced out. It's like $60,000. This isn't like 2012, 13. Mm-hmm. So I go, here's what I have for a trade-in. How much is it worth? And the guy goes, $5,000. I go, what? He goes, yeah, $5,000. I go, there's more than $5,000 in electronics on it. is the boat. And I said, I understand it needs some gel coat work. And I go, but I think it's a $15,000 boat after you guys put $3,000 into it. 5,000. So I hung up on the guy. I'm like, whatever. I get a
He
call.
didn't do a very good job telling you 5,000.
No, I get a call back like 5 minutes later, and they're like, yeah, this is so-and-so, the manager over here. He's like, we can't, he should have never told you that. Like, we have to see the boat.
Yeah.
You have to bring it in here. And I go,
to say that.
I'm just looking for a ballpark. I'm not looking to hold you to a number. Like, is it a $10,000 boat, 15,000? I go, you can come and see the boat, but I can't get it out till the snow melts. But I said, I'd like to get a boat on order because I know it's going to take a few months.
Yeah.
So I go, but unfortunately, the way that guy talked to me, I won't buy anything from your dealership. So I thought, well, let me call the Skeeter rep. So I call him. And I go, hey, I talked to you last year at Clearwater. Yeah. He said, go up here to this place and I'll tell him you're coming. I said, okay. So I buy a boat in 2014, Skeeter, loaded, for $40,000. And I think...
Do you trailer your big outboard? Then you need the MyWedge motor support. MyWedge keeps even the heaviest motors safe and secure on the trailer. And talk about easy. Up with the motor, on with the MyWedge, back down, ready to roll. And MyWedge is built to last. It won't rot, it won't split, it won't fail. Guaranteed. Pop on MyWedge centering clips for lateral stability and you're good to go. MyWedge, security in a snap. To order yours, go to mywedge.com.
I think it probably should have been like 70, somewhere right in there. So I say, well, if they're supposed to sell it for 70, but he could sell it to me for 40, they make good money on these boats.
Maybe I don't know who does, but it's the dealer does not make that kind of money on those boats. That I will completely confirm, and people would be. It's not. I'm not going to say it's $1,500. There's plenty of boats that you do make $1,500 on only.
Right.
But it's not even close to that. But it's not even close to $1,500 either. But
so this was a team deal. So I'm sure
and it's 2012, 2014, which those things seem to be more prevalent then. Is the other thing I
so
would say.
basically what I was told back then
Doesn't
is
exist anymore.
Each dealership got X amount of team members, and they probably got a discounted rate from the manufacturer to help these team guys out.
It's called team boats.
And
You
now
get two
those
to three of them,
No, those are
and whatever
non-existent.
insanely good discount that was is now 6%.
Right.
You know what I mean? 4%.
Fast forward to 2018. I'm fishing Champ Tour. I get approached by a dealership. Hey, this guy told us to call you. We're taking on Skeeter. We want to put you on our team. I said, okay. I said, I'd be willing to buy a new boat. I said, but I know the FXR is coming out. I don't want an FX. I want the FXR. That's my only complaint about Skeeter boats is they were so skinny in the front. I always felt like I'm setting the hook and the seat's in my way, getting around it.
I'm going to bite my tongue for this part of the conversation.
So the guy said, well, we don't even know pricing on the FXRs yet. I said, well, when you figure that out, let me know. So all summer long, I'm talking to this guy, and like late August comes, they have their dealer meeting. Guy comes back, and he's like, all right, we got numbers, and he gives me the price, and I go online, and it's like $3,000 less. And I go, no. I said, it's supposed to be a team deal. And he goes, yeah. He goes, those deals you got back then, those don't exist. They're gone.
They're gone.
But then I've watched, I bought my boat from Matt Thompson.
Yep.
And I stole it. I feel like I stole it.
It's a good boat. He probably took care of it, too.
I had 20 hours on it when I bought it.
Jeez, does that guy even fish?
Well, look at the boat he has now.
I had to talk a little shit there.
The boat he has now, he got like in September. So last year was the first year he had a boat for 2 years.
Okay.
Because it was during the shortage. He got it so late in the year.
Yep.
I think he fished, the hell's the name of that lake that's up in Orr? Pelican. That's when he got the boat, he fished Pelican, and then that was it for the year. And then he's had it the next year, but he normally puts them together. I'm sure he gets a crazy deal because he's not paying for half the shit. And then Joe Carlson does all the rigging, so he doesn't pay for that. And he's basically just looking to get out of it so he can get a new one, where there's a lot of guys going, well, I only paid this much for it, but it's worth this much. Yep. So I'm going to try to get up here. So, I mean, I I bought that boat in 2020, and I think I could still sell it and make 10 on it from what I paid for
You
it.
did really good. Because those deals aren't to be had anymore. And at the end of the day, they all cost a lot of money now. So no matter what brand you're choosing as an angler, make sure it's a boat you like. A high quality boat. Pick one that you think's high quality, because guess what? The price difference is not that much, especially because you're going to be owning that thing maybe you don't know how long. The next thing's a dealer, right?
Yeah.
Pick a dealer that you can trust that's going to stand behind it and take care of that purchase, because as you know, new boats have gremlins from time to time, and
yes,
at the end of the day, when you spend that kind of money, you want to work with people that give a shit at least.
Yeah, like, so for me, I bought 2 nitro boats from the same dealership. The last one I had was like I think it was like a 02, and I paid like $26,000 for it. And everyone's like, "Wow, why'd you buy a nitro? They're so cheap." And I go, "Yeah, they're cheap. Yeah, but when you go to sell it, they ain't worth nothing." I go, "But I didn't pay nothing for it." So the difference is that same boat in a Ranger back then was $40,000.
Hey, you didn't buy a $100,000 nitro.
No,
that's a different conversation.
So I think if you paid $40,000 for an 18-foot Ranger, that it should be worth more money 2 years from now when you sell it. But I only paid $26,000, so 2 years from now when I sell it, it's only worth 18 or whatever,
Right.
But now I look at half the boats have a 1 in front of them now.
Well, it's a lot of it's the boat, but a lot of it's
it's the accessories.
It's all of it put together, right?
I mean, you look at this, you got $3,000 trolling motor, you got 1, 2, 3 graphs at
insane.
$3,000 a piece.
It's insane.
Poles are $5,000 for a set, somewhere in there. I mean,
you got 40 grand and shit on these boats. Atlas plates. Nobody used to have hydraulic plate. Blah 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 blah.
$1,000, $1,200 for a prop.
It's crazy what there is. Like, working in the boat industry is so cool, and every company's got a story, and it's a mousetrap, dude. And there's intricacies to each boat, and people like different things about different boats, but I think one of the coolest things that's happened, why I do like Vex's boats so much, is like it's kind of a revolutionary story in the sense of, like, Johnny Morris, big company, buys Ranger out, cheapens the product up, customer service goes away. There was a deal like that wasn't supposed to happen. Those guys built the Vex's factory 1.5 miles away from the Ranger factory. Like, that's in a town with less than 1,000 people.
Yeah.
In a town that can't.
And they basically said, "You just come work for us." And a lot of them said, "Yeah."
Well, at the end of the day, it's a matter of these guys give a shit. And there's companies that give a shit, and there's companies that don't.
Right.
And I guess from a consumer perspective, when, you got your Jacob Wheel, whoever's promoting a boat, Kevin Van Dam with the Nitro.
Yep.
It might be the nicest boat in the world. You don't know he's got 4 of them. Breaks 2 every year.
Yeah.
And that's what, like, when you've run as many boats as you have, or when you've been in it, you start to learn some of those things, and it's that's such a whole rabbit hole in and of itself. But I love that stuff.
I think the one they're going to sell is that new one they just came out with.
That VXS20?
They're going to sell the shit out of
that thing. Is gangster, dude.
Because the whole thing with these is, like Dan will tell you.
That's an Arnie boat.
This thing rides like a Cadillac.
Oh, God, yeah.
It's not fast.
It's not the fastest boat unless there's 3-footers.
But this new one's going to be faster.
Oh, yeah. No, that's a 70-mile-an-hour boat.
They must have shaved some poundage off of that But I mean,
look how tall this boat is. Like, the storage. You can put more weight in this boat than any other boat. No wonder it's going to run slower. You're putting, 8,000 more boxes of jigs in it.
And it just drafts so much more water, and
it does.
I mean, but like you say, you get to Leech, and a guy like me, my boat rides good in rough water, but nothing like this.
I'll be honest, this thing's ace in the hole on Leech. Yeah. It's awesome, especially with my back, dude. Like,
well, yeah, because you got them seats in there too.
Totally. As long as you pump them seats up, like, you come off a wave wrong, and my back, like, I used to have to wear kind of a brace and stuff, and I don't really have to wear the brace no more with them seats, because I don't drive maybe as hard as I used to. Yeah. I'm not in as big a hurry maybe, but
I'm getting there the same way. Like, I used to just floor it everywhere I went. And now it's like, well, I'm out practicing. What's the hurry? For two reasons. The gas is so expensive now that if you're running around at 45 miles an hour, a tank of gas lasts me all practice.
Right.
Where before I'd run 70 miles an hour, I get a day and a half and I'm out of gas,
Well, what's cool about this boat they got coming is it's literally, it's going to have a similar, it's going to have the same running surface dead rise. It's just they've shortened it down. There's a little bit less depth in the storage and, things like that. And it's a little maybe more dock fishing friendly, so to speak. So I'm excited to run one hopefully this year, at least a little bit. And
just to see.
Yeah, dude, because I really think this thing is one of the best riding boats. And I'm curious, if I'm going to be able to catch a few more dockfish this year.
And is that a feedback issue? Like, did their customers say, hey, we love this boat, but we'd like a little more speed, or we'd like a little shallower draft? Or
I think a lot of it was addressing the speed issue. At the end of the day, these boats are awesome, but bass boats do have a little bit of a speed reputation. And these guys, they were after overall. When they're after performance, these guys really, the speed is just a small factor. So, they'll sacrifice, 2 miles an hour if it makes all these other things better. Right. But I think, having a little bit more low profile, agile boat, this was a starting point.
When these came out, a lot of people looked at them. They're like, what in the, what?
A little different
looking.
It's
not a bass boat. It's like between a bass boat and a walleye boat, which is basically exactly what it is. It's got the walleye boat handling, but it still fishes more like a bass boat.
Yeah, that 21-foot walleye bottom is real similar.
But like in my boats, my FXR is much slower than my ZX20 was. But I think I'd keep the FX over my ZX boat. My ZX20 was an 82-mile-an-hour boat.
Sure.
But when you got into waves...
You got to take that feel free, man.
That's just take the trash out.
Hey, I ain't here to slow down them painting jobs, dude.
With my ZX20... When you got into the waves, you got beat up.
Sure.
Now the FXR rides like a marshmallow. It's really strange. Like
lands a lot softer.
50 miles an hour, you're going, and if you hammer on it, it feels like the boat picks up because it's picking up the back end.
Yep.
And then it's like this.
Dun, 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 dun.
It's just kind of floaty.
Interesting. So it kind of rides on top.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Huh.
And I've run it in some pretty big stuff, like on the Pepin and I think Vermilion was pretty... Well, we had that one year on Pokegama that was horrible.
Yeah.
And much, much better ride, but it doesn't go 80 miles an hour.
That's
70, 72, 73 maybe.
Well, there's something to be said about that.
Right.
You don't see guys... All the Great Lakes guys aren't running Bullets and Allisons, right?
Right.
So, but dude, Skier makes a good boat, and I appreciate those guys supporting Champs Tour.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, dude, there's a lot of good boats out there, and I guess we all have our partials. I'm definitely partial to these Vexuses, but I've toured the factory. I'm very, I know, like, there's a story behind these guys. They give a shit about everyone. Yeah, they're an easy company to fall in love with. But yeah, dude, I mean, so this has been really fun, man. I appreciate you coming out.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate the invite.
So yeah, we started with spinnerbaits, and they didn't even make chatterbaits when we started, right?
No, never heard of
them. We were talking about tactical minnows, but you were saying something while we were eating pizza before about a chatterbait like over an ounce.
Yeah, so
first I've heard of it.
So I learned this while watching TV last year when the Major League Fishing guys were on Lahamadou. The guys that were smashing them were fishing ounce and ounce and a half spinnerbaits or chatterbaits, and I thought
on Lahamadou.
Lahamadou.
Really?
The guys that won that, the team, it's like
I should
four.
watch that.
It's like four guys. Yeah. That's why I watched it because I'm
fun,
like,
yeah.
dude, we're fishing Lahamadou next year.
Duh, yeah.
And when I'm watching it, I'm like, well, I know exactly where they're at. You look in the background, I'm like, yeah, I know where that's at. I know where that's at. Yeah, I know where that's at. And I thought, well, I'm going to buy some of these and try it in practice.
Did it work?
And I was fishing a big, long weed finger. There's one guy fishing down this side of it, and I'm fishing down the other side in practice. And I'm just bam, bam, bam. And this guy's throwing what looks like the same bait. And I talked to him after the tournament. He's like, what were you throwing? I said, 1.5 ounce chatterbait. He's like, where do you even get one of those? And I
I'm a
said,
bad liar, but I probably would have said 3/4 of an ounce at that point.
Yeah, I had to order them online because you go to the bait store and 3/4 is like as heaviest as you find.
Yeah.
Half and 3/4 and 3/8 is all you ever find. But Z-Man makes them.
Are they fishing it deeper? Is that the thing? Like keeping it down deeper? Was that what there was?
I think it was a speed issue.
You want
So
it
they're
fast.
still running it 2 feet under the surface, but cranking it in 3 times as fast.
So they're rolling a big.
Yeah,
rolling.
and when they hit it, it's just it's like fishing
Man.
it's like fishing a shallow crankbait
Yeah.
where you're just burning it and then they hit it and it just slams. Like for me, it completely different when you're fishing a deep crankbait. It just kind of loads up. But when you're fishing like a shallow runner and they smash it, that's kind of what it's like because you're reeling it so fast, and then when they hit it,
Cool.
But it
Cool.
worked in practice, and then tournament day I couldn't get bit on it.
Yeah, I had a few things like that quite a few times this year. Yep.
There was two spots I found on the Hamadou,
They just weren't eating a move.
and then they threw us that damn pick your side deal, and I was like,
I fucking hate the pick your side deal. Can I just go on? And
no,
kinda say that?
I like to pick the side deal because some of these lake
until 90% of us pick one side, Arnie.
Right.
Like it's good when 50% of us do, but what about when we don't?
right. So when we fished the championship on Bay Lake, there was no way they could have put us all in half of that lake. So it was nice that they split it. What was real nice is I picked the side that only had 7 boats on it. So we had the whole lake to ourselves. But then you go to the other side and you're like, am I fishing used water? You have no idea.
Oh, yeah. Well, they aren't when they get back.
Right.
But they're with all those. Yeah.
But what I don't like about that is you get 14 seconds to decide.
I also hate a lake split in general. I don't know why we do it. Who else does it? We're the only tour that does it.
I wouldn't mind if you remember how Major League Fishing started. And I've told Scott this. Because it used to be you could just get in one tournament. And then they made it where you have to, it's all or none. And back when you used to be able to just get in one tournament, like you'd just get the local guys. And I told Scott, I said, well, here's how you fix that. You put the schedule out, dates. That's it. And then about a month before the tournament, you put the county down so people can get lodging or whatever. Now, there's some places that it won't be that hard to figure out. Like if they tell us the county that Big Stone's in, there's nothing else over there. So it'll be pretty easy to figure out. But if they were saying they're taking us to Wright County, there's a lot of lakes in Wright County. How many of them can support a group? I don't know. But I would be willing to fish a tournament where they tell us the body of water the night, like they have a host hotel, we all stay there. They tell us the night before, here's where we're fishing tomorrow. And the same thing, remember they used to give them like a 30-minute run through? You get 30 minutes to run around this lake and look around. Then you can start wherever you're at or whatever, but I think that would be something that would be fun. But for me, the lake split, I don't mind because the group keeps getting larger. Like, I don't know if we'll stay at 65 forever. Will it go to 75, 100?
But it would spread out more without a lake split.
Oh, just no split at all.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Like,
and
that, to me, makes the most sense. I don't like a lake split. I personally think
I think the only
there's
reason
enough anglers doing it now where we can spread out.
Yeah, and I think the only reason for that is, like, first year I fished La Hamadou, John Figge and Jim Moyna had 100 pounds at halftime. It was in the 90s. It was like Figge had 97 and Moyna had 98. Well, what would have happened after the split, after halftime? They would have just went right back. So those two guys would just... So,
Yeah.
But what happened with the lake split is that tournament was won with 114 pounds. So the two guys that were leading it finished 1 and 2. I think Figge won it, Moyna finished second. And it was like 114 to 113. So it forced them to go to the other side of the lake and try to find something, and they didn't. Caught a fish here, a fish there. They probably each caught 5 fish on the second half. Where if they could have went back to the 2 spots they were at, it probably wouldn't have changed the outcome of the tournament, though. Those two guys still would have just won it.
You still see things change throughout the day, though.
Yep.
And, like, it's a matter of lake split can mess with how things can change throughout the
Right.
day, like, and your ability to read that change. If they could go back to that same pot of fish and it's not happening in the afternoon, it's like a little, you know. And for me, it's more so like I look at that rush deal, no split. You could have gone back to the east side, dude.
Right.
You know?
So, and you have to be slightly careful here because Bonhama's a big, you know, if there's a problem, I want to know about it before everyone knows about it.
Scott Bonhama. Hey, I'm going to fish either way. No matter what, dude. I'm going to fish, and I'm not bitching. But
No,
if I was to change one rule, it would be with 65 boats now, I would say no lake split. Keep everything else the same. But everybody's going to have an opinion, and
Right.
I'm not saying I'm bitching, and I'm not saying, you know, I'm
No,
not trying to
for me, the only thing
ruffle
I don't-
Scott's feathers. I have a lot of respect for that, man.
The only thing I don't like about it is what happened, like at Rush, was it turned into a strategy where I'm second.
I wasn't trying to put you in a position to bitch.
Right.
Sorry, I see what you
No,
meant there.
I've told
Yep.
a few people this. I'm like, so I'm the second guy to pick my side. But the guys that were way back in line were like, okay, that guy's going on this side. Like, there was guys taking notes like, okay, there's this many on this side and that many on that side.
I was asking. Probably shouldn't have been, but
Right, so-
I missed that little part about hey, don't ask which side. So I was
Right.
ADD as my bad.
So if they're going to do that where they do the lake split and then they announce at the last second that you get to choose a side, they really need to find a way to be like, nobody knows how many are on each side.
I would pick 25 guys and 20. We all got to fish both sides anyway.
Right.
You almost
So
gotta.
I've thought about that.
randomize it
Like
if
they
you're
could
gonna
just
do
go.
it.
They could just go odd and even, right? The odd guys are starting here, the even. But then you'd have the, well, I wanted to start on the other side. That's not fair. You know, you always got
And
a
that
couple
makes
of
sense.
those.
Maybe I had a morning deal here.
Right. So,
Right.
and it's burned me a few times. Like when we fished Vermilion the one time, I had a killer morning bite going on top water. And then when I got the lake split, I was like, yeah, that's fine. And then they said, we're starting on this side. I was like, ugh. So, of course, in the afternoon, I go and check. I had a bunch of points lined up in a backwater area that they all had 3, 4, 5 fish on them. Well, afternoon. Can't get bit.
At the end of the day, Arnie, that's what I'm saying. I'm just trying to save Mr. Bonham and the folks a few extra phone calls because there would be no bitching about a lake split if there was no lake split.
Yeah. The only time you'd have a problem with that is well,
I've never thought that a lake split was the reason I finished a certain way, by
Right.
the way.
Do you know-
I'm not that way.
you
I
know-
just don't like it.
do you know why there originally was a lake split, in my opinion?
Because MLF did it?
Camera boats.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, like, when they put us on the Mississippi River, we're going out of Wabasha.
That's what Newman tells me when I have these talks with him.
They can't cover from dam to dam with camera boats. And
Yep.
if they just let everyone go willy-nilly, that's what would happen is you'd have some guys down here smashing them, and then oh, hey, we got to get, where are you at? Oh, I'm in Red Wing. Oh, shit. And so I think the reason that they kind of do it is to kind of keep people in an area.
Yep.
Well, now East and West Rush is not that big, so
And you
now
have three camera boats now.
now
so
we-
we'll
yeah,
put
now
one
we-
camera boat at the top, one camera boat at the bottom, one camera boat in the middle,
Yep.
and no lake split. And
But like I've told Bonham before, I'd like to see 100 boats. Like, let's make this a tournament trail where guys winning 30, 40,000 for first place.
I think-
problem with that is
lakes are limited as
the same thing we have why the Elite Series isn't here, why MLF's not here, because you can't have an open here hardly. Where
Couldn't have
where
lake
are you
split.
going to have a place that has launches, lodging, and some sort of
cell service.
some sort of a meeting facility for 300 boats,
Vermilion?
400 boats?
Vermilion's to me the best,
Lodging's no good though.
right? So neither is cell service, and that
So,
they
like,
make
I-
a good point with that.
I
We
have
need
a
it. We have an app.
I have a strict policy. I hate staying at hotels. One, because you got $150,000 worth of your shit sitting out in the parking lot with everyone else's $150,000 worth of shit, and the eyeballs are just too many.
Yeah.
So I like to stay, and I typically do all our lodging for the guys that stay with us. I like to stay out of town, 15 minutes at a farm, hotel, or
Park.
I mean, somewhere where there's 4 or 5 boats at a place, and not everyone's looking at them. But and you have a place to cook. You watch TV, hang out on the couch. Some of
That's
these places
ideal.
have pinball or pool tables or whatever. But for me, when I stay in a hotel, it's always so stuffy, and I just don't like the whole parking lot deal. But then when we stayed at Vermilion, I called every resort on the lake. Nope, there was no Airbnbs available, so we ended up at the hotel. It was a clusterfuck with plugging in boats. There was only like 2 light poles that
Right.
worked, and so now imagine 150 boats.
Right.
What? You're starting to get limited on
Pelican was
where
coming
we
that
can
way, too.
fish.
Yeah.
Well, if you remember, Pelican only had 1 boat launch until the day before the tournament.
Right.
They
And
were-
that one resort didn't have enough plugins for everybody. And yeah.
Yeah, and so when we stayed there, we stayed at like a 1850s farmhouse,
Okay.
like 3 miles out of town.
Cool.
It was perfect.
I slept in my truck at some campground nearby, but like that's what I try to do is bum an Airbnb and toss the guys a
Right.
couple of shekels or bring them a case or stay in an Airbnb or park it.
Yep.
And our last resort's always find a hotel at 11 p.m. and
Yeah.
bum some plug-ins, sleep in the back of the truck. But
Plug-ins, cords going out the door and the windows, and
yeah, dude.
yeah. But if you can get like 5 guys to stay in an Airbnb, it ends up costing you like $300, $350 for the week.
Sure.
Well, if you're going to stay in a hotel with 2 guys, that's what you're going to pay. Depending.
Right.
Like, I know some guys stayed out at Big Stone for like $45 a night at some sleazeball place, but
We stayed at a decent place for not much a night. Ron
Yeah.
Ron hooked it up. But yeah.
so, but yeah, I like. So I stay with usually all the Arsenal guys.
Yeah, dude.
Well, I'm not sure what we're gonna do this year because Dan's not fishing. I don't believe.
Yeah, no, he's going full suit and tie this year.
So it's normally me, Dan, Tyler Darrow, Chad Grigsby, and then my buddy Bob Schill. Bob's not fishing this year. Was Grigsby on the list? I didn't see if he was or not.
I didn't look, but yeah, maybe. I don't know.
So, I mean, I think we're down to 2 or 3 guys. Well, now you can't spend $1,500 for an Airbnb for the week.
Right.
So,
I'm looking at cottages more so.
yeah, and I've got a couple of them that I keep in the back of my mind. Like, I've got one at Leech that sleeps 4 guys for $60 a night. And now it's maybe 25 minutes away. It's over at Nevis. And then I've got a great place I like to stay when we fish the whitefish. It's in a little strip mall, and it's got 2 queen beds and then a queen double bunk bed and then a big it's a strip mall.
What?
This is odd. Like, this would never happen in the cities. There's an apartment in the first section. This Airbnb is the second section. There's embroidery, the third section. And the last 2 sections is a landscaping company. And then
Actually makes sense.
they've got the whole back lot. But they've got commercial and residential in the same building. Like, that doesn't swing around here.
If you can't rent commercial up there,
Right.
you gotta fill it. That's why it makes sense.
Yeah, and so there's a big parking lot, plenty of
Yeah.
plug-ins, and that's like $80 a night. So,
Sure.
like, some of those are perfect, but like, I've looked for Okoboji. There's not shit for Airbnbs down there. There's a bunch of these resorts that rent cabins for like $169 a night.
Sure.
So then I'll look at like aerial videos. There's nowhere to park. So, like, I'm not sure how that's gonna go. St. Croix, I'll just stay home and drive from home, but
I suppose, yeah.
and then Gull. I'm sure we'll find an Airbnb up there somewhere, but
Sure. Do you ever, off topic, but you ever talk to Dan about making them tube heads?
no.
I feel like he could maybe get
Probably
it done.
could.
Yeah.
Call his people in China.
I just hope your phone rings so you can get some more tube heads made
Right.
here after this one. But I guess, dude, I appreciate you making the trip out. I guess, is there anything you want to air out into the galaxy here before we kind of wrap things up? This has been like extra fun.
No, I think this is the first time I've done anything like this, and I really feel like I'm like, I'll be honest with you, my goal 10 years from now when I show up at a tournament is I get the same recognition as like Dean Capra.
Yeah, dude.
Hey, that's Arnold Helgerson. Like, I want to be known as one of these guys that been around for a
I
long
hear
time,
you,
and I
man.
feel
Yeah.
like I'm starting to get there, but I need to win some of these. Like, I haven't won a Champ Tour event now for years, so I'd like to win one this year, and the best shot I'll have is probably at Gull. I've fished the St. Croix twice, both 5-fish tournaments, and they were championships, and both times I weighed 11, 12 pounds. So, I mean, it's got fish in it, but both times I didn't fish the St. Croix. I fished the Mississippi way down south.
Sure.
But Okoboji, Scott, if you're listening, I'd really like to see that set up where we have to follow the state minimum. And I want to say it's like 16 or 17 inches for their... They have year-round bass fishing.
I'm down. I heard like 6-7 Iwinians joined in.
Yep.
So that'll be interesting,
I don't
too,
know if
'cause,
that's because we're fishing Okoboji.
I mean, I gotta think it's quite a bit part of it.
And that's another one of those, I'd like to see just the dates come out. You're either going to fish the trail or you ain't. Here's the dates. Wait till the field's full. Put out the lakes.
Yeah.
Because now we got, is there like 5 of them? Locals? They're probably going to whip
That's what I
our...
heard.
They're going to kick our ass on Okoboji.
Maybe.
And
It's
then
a new
we're-
format for them, though, Arnie.
Then we're going to take back their money on the other 2 lakes.
Maybe. It's a new format for them.
Right.
And what I know is if I would have showed up to Champions Tour my first year on a home lake, I don't know how much better I would have done.
Right.
So there's that. But definitely a local advantage.
Yeah.
Anyway, but
Same thing happened.
Hey guys, Gaff here with Waypoint Angler Supply. I'm hanging out here at our JDM wall. We've got a large variety of product. Hold on. Hey guys, Gaff here with Waypoint Angler Supply. I'm just out here hanging out at our JDM wall with my buddy Teal, and we're going over some JDM product. We've got ourselves some Fish Arrow, some Duo Realis, Depths, and G-Crack, all for you. But it's not just the tackle that we've got. We've got ourselves some reels, some rods, all from Japan, some BFS stuff, all the good stuff that you're looking for from Japan that you can't find anywhere else. So swing on into Waypoint Angler Supply and get yourself stocked up.
We'll see you here at Waypoint Angler Supply.
.com? .com. Use the code GALAXY20 to save 20% on your next tackle binge.
You know, Big Stone got on the list last year. How many South Dakota guys did we have? There's a few.
There's a few, yeah.
Yep. So will we see them again this year? I don't know, maybe. But, I mean, we've got one guy from Indiana.
Mike Dove. And I think 2 guys from Indiana fished last year. Good dudes.
And
Nice
it's
guys.
they just basically say where we're from, there's nothing to fish.
No, dude, shit sucks over there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you can draw guys that far away, like I said earlier, I think we started at $500 or $550, and then we went up. I think did we go to $650 or something? And then we went to $1,000. A lot of guys were like, "Oh, everyone's gonna quit. No one's gonna do it at $1,000." And now I feel like, I think they could fill the field at $1,500, $2,000. And the only reason I say that is because people are looking at all the money comes back.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I said, like, when I started this, like, you don't have to win one of these. It'd be nice.
Uh-huh.
But if you're coming in 5th,
Yep.
you're getting some money.
Yeah,
Or a lot of
yep,
these
I
other
can speak to
tournaments,
that.
if you come in 5th, you don't get shit.
Right.
You know, you get nothing.
Dude, I took second in one of those, and it was better than winning
So
just about
and-
anything else.
Yeah, and so I think
Yeah.
the price point reflects on the payout. So if these people are putting in $1,500 for a tournament, but all they got to do is place in the top 5 once, they get all their money back. I don't think the entry fee is going to slow down the people that join.
No, because we all think we're going to take top 5 at least once, right?
Right.
That's why we're fishing.
Yeah, and I think these younger kids, I'd even, like, when I started, I thought, well, I can't compete with these guys at the top, but I think I can finish in check range like every tournament. You know, that's what my thought process was. And so I'm like, if I get the last check, I'm getting my money back in a little bit. And so that keeps me going to the next one. But I don't know how expensive they could be. But like I said, if they make the field bigger, then the lake choices get smaller.
Yeah.
So,
Well, if there's one thing I want you to know, man, is you've earned that recognition of Angler of the Year champion. And
I appreciate it.
even without that, I want you to know that you're known as one of the deadliest threats on the Champions Tour.
It's good to know.
And yeah, no, they're whether you're fishing a dock or not, if Arnie's catching them, that whole field is worried that they don't have enough docks to run.
Right.
So be proud of what you've done, dude, and it's been cool to watch you work. And I guess I'm excited for this year, and dude,
And-
I just appreciate you making the trip out, man.
And I'll have the. I'm gonna approach this year the same as I did last year. Last year I had some issues because I had electronics issues, so I believe I have that all figured out now. I'm still not a live guy, so I won that at that last tournament. I won a Hummingbird
Mega Live
10 and a Mega Live, and I thought I'm gonna put this on my boat, and then I thought I'm not ready to get to there yet.
Don't do it.
So I'm like, I don't think I'm gonna. I think it will just cost me more time, but eventually I think you have to do it if you're gonna keep up with these kids. And
That's up to you, man. John Cox, I think there's something to be said about that style of fishing, and I
was
really
that
wish
2 years ago he took all his electronics off,
Yeah, dude.
and he still
Like,
did good.
That's what I'm saying. So I'm a guy who utilizes electronics, but I wish I was better at just, not needing them. So yeah.
My focus last year was to try to find something like don't even touch the docks, because I do a lot of aerial stuff, and I can look at a lake and go, those are good, those are good, those are junk, those are good.
I like that.
And I'll mark a lot of that stuff off.
You Google it.
But I like to spend my time trying to find schools of fish, because I'd much rather sit in one place and catch 20 than drive all over and catch 20.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my focus last year, but I didn't get to do that because I hadn't had, like, whitefish chain. I had no electronics. So I just went back to what I know there. So I look at the schedule this year. Okoboji, I think, is going to be an offshore bite. The water is super clear there. And I think we're not going to get the spawn. We're going to be well past the spawn when we go down there.
Should be.
Especially the way the ice is and stuff this year. It's going to be way ahead.
Or way late.
And St. Croix, not going to be a dock bite. So I've got 1 or 2 spots that I have in my head that I'm going to go look at. I'm going to try to spend some time there. But and then we go back to Gull. Be nice to have some offshore stuff there. So
Yep.
my practice will go the same way. I'll spend my whole week trying to find offshore stuff. If I find it, great. If I don't, then I'll have backup plan to fish docks. Or
I love
whatever,
that,
but
I love that mentality, and I tried to do that, but it seems like I need to practice a little bit of that
right,
to be able to keep an open mind with it tournament day.
right.
And that's just a mental barrier. But you said something that we'll leave it at this, because if it's what I'm thinking, it's a nugget. You Google Earth?
Quite a bit.
Google Earth Pro?
No.
Google Earth, I am as good of a shallow water angler in much part because of that.
Right.
Because I don't have time to fish all of them. So I try to, I spend a lot of time studying that. And I guess without giving away the whole cheese to end the episode here, when you're looking at aerial footage of shallow water, without giving up the whole cheese, let's give them a snack. Let's maybe not give them the whole kitchen. But
So
when you're looking at that, what are you looking for? What's good? What sucks?
When I'm fishing docks, there's a very specific thing that I'm looking for, and it has to do a lot with. I like shallow docks, but I like a multitude of options. So I don't want a dock that's just clean sand, unless there's a weed line out in front of it. So now you have 2 options.
Sure.
If you can find deep water, some weeds mixed into a dock, some clean areas. For me, the more options that those docks have, the better they're going to be, because the fish have more options.
Yeah, they can
So-
live around the dock easier.
So when you're looking at satellite footage, if you look up whitefish chain on a satellite, and you look at that shoreline that's just coming out of trout,
Yep.
and you go south, you can see on Google Earth that it's nothing but sand all the way down to the point. There ain't a weed to be found anywhere.
Right.
And if you fish those docks, you'll figure out exactly what I'm talking about. There's 80 docks there probably, and there might be fish on 3 of them. But when you come back tomorrow, they won't be there. There'll be 7 houses down on 3 docks down there.
Oh, dude, yeah.
Because there's nothing holding them in one spot. And for me, Vermilion's the exact opposite. So like when you're fishing a lake up here, like you go to Clearwater and you find a rock hump, it's gonna have fish on it. But if the whole lake's a rock hump, there's no reason to hold them in one spot. So that's what I found when I was fishing Vermilion, is all them docks are the same. There's no reason for them to be here rather than here. So that's why when I look at satellite imagery, I'm looking for more choices for the fish in a small area.
Dude, that makes so much sense. And I think about, that's a nugget. And I guess, congratulations to everybody who tuned in this long, which most people do. But I always look for, like Doc, that's the only thing they could be on. You know what I mean? So I almost feel like.
And we have some of that around here. Like, I fish Forest Lake a lot in town.
Yep.
Forest Lake is, I call them a muskie-driven lake. They control the lake.
Sure.
So
that makes sense.
Can you catch bass out deep? Yeah, you can. Like, you're out on a point, you catch 3 bass, then you catch a muskie, and it tears you through all the weeds, and they're gone. But when you get up shallow on that lake, it's the same. All there is sand around the whole lake for 600 feet before the weeds start. So then, yeah, that's all they have is them docks. The only thing I don't like about that is they can be anywhere.
Yeah, you got to fish all them docks.
But if you're looking at a satellite image and you see a ditch running into 3 docks from a weed bed, money every time. But
Cross Lake is coming into my mind now, but we'll leave it at that, dude. That was I'm impressed you shared that. Thank you. And I guess, dude, this has been an honor having you. And like, you are the 2023 Classic Bass Champions Tour Angler of the Year, Arnold Helgerson. How does that feel now?
it feels good. Like I said, there's only a handful of guys that have done it.
Dude, very few.
And
I'm jealous. It's awesome, dude.
I think there might be a couple guys that have done it more than once.
Noah and
sure.
Peters, maybe? Noah and Peters, I think. If some...
I don't know if Noah's won. Has he won Angler of the Year?
He's won it at least once, and I feel like he's won it twice, but I don't know.
Well, he wins the championship every year, but...
It's unbelievable.
No, it's like I said at the end of that tournament, congrats to him. I mean, he's earned it.
It's not like he's a cheater, none of that.
Nope.
That dude is cut from a cloth that is work ethic.
And I'll tell you, at most tournaments, I talk to Newman, and I don't know if he gets tired of me or not, but I see some things at these tournaments, and, you know, it's the same thing. Scott doesn't like them aired out in the public, so I usually take them to Newman first, and if I get clarification from him, I'm fine with it. But I've always said the same thing about cheaters. If it doesn't give them, if I see someone doing something that doesn't give them an advantage over me, I don't care what they're doing. But when I see someone doing something that I feel gives them an advantage and it's against the rules, then I'll bring it up.
Do you think people do that? In Champs Tour? Do you think anybody?
I think it's happened a couple of times,
Really?
but they're well aware of it. But
That's too bad.
But not cheating, but like gray areas in the rules that have been abused a little bit. But
Sure.
But that's the good thing about the guys running this is when something's brought to their attention, they take care of it.
They do.
And they'll usually talk about it like at the next meeting or whatever. But
Yep.
But
Absolutely.
the only other thing I'd like to see changed in Champions Tour is I'd like to see them go back to not telling us where the TOC is at until the last tournament.
I can understand your point.
So,
Because I'm like, man, why didn't I think of that?
well, for me, it's
Not that I would have had the same result.
Like
but
when we
I
went-
think a lot of people were like, yeah, that's really smart.
like when we went to Mille Lacs that year for the TOC. It was the first tournament. You know, it was
We
supposed
got
to be
one
there.
day of practice.
It was supposed to be a secret.
I didn't
all
know
year long.
Until, did you know before?
Yeah, they announced it at the first tournament.
Mille Lacs? Oh yeah, but you couldn't. We only got one day of practice. Yep.
But on a lake like that, I don't think it matters much because you know guys are going to go there all summer now and pre-fish. But
I
on
didn't
a lake
because
like that,
I didn't know if I was making the championship. I'm not that
Right.
cocky at the time. You know, that was my first year fishing the trail.
But like
So-
I said, when we went to Pekegum, or what's the one way up in north? Pelican. I think if that lake only had like a day of practice, we would have really seen what that lake could do.
the
'cause
wind
I'm-
switched.
Because I'm telling you, in practice, they
Oh,
interviewed
dude, it was
me.
Stupid.
They interviewed me and they said, "What's it going to take for the 3-fish deal? What's it called?
Oh, moolah.
The Moolah Cash." And I said 17 to 18 pounds, maybe a little more. And they said, "What?"
That
And
would've
I
been
said,
my
"Well,
guess.
I'm telling you, I caught one just short of 8 pounds, and I caught I don't know how many 5.5 and 6s." So I
I
said,
caught more 5.5s and 6s on
I
that
said,
lake than any lake I've ever
"Someone's
fished.
going to catch at least 2 5s and a giant, and it's going to be 18, 19 pounds." But then just so many of them fish got caught, I thought.
Dude, that's exactly what happened. And they were biting in practice.
Yeah.
The weather
Switched. Yeah.
It went from west wind sustained, fish were positioned really good,
Yep.
to east light and variable, like the post front. Like
And the bad part is I had a guy that fishes there a lot tell me, you got to find these big boulders and what part of the lake they were in. And I looked and looked and looked and never found one. And then that guy finds one and just blisters us. I think he had more in the first half. Like, he could have just stayed in at the
I
end
had
of
to
the first
split
half.
mine, but I felt like I had that weight on my stuff. I just had to split it with Shane and Peters, which I thought I found the sneakiest, juiciest,
No.
out in the middle of Egypt, grass flat, rock pile.
Yeah.
Every cast. And then I'm splitting it. But what's crazy is that was the worst I've seen the lake fished, and it's still the Champions Tour weight record.
Yeah.
So it's like we almost dodged a bullet not showing off what that thing was really.
Right.
Because
Wow. Because then, well, that's a catch and release lake anyway. So
it is, but
but
pressure's
you'd
pressure.
still, yeah, it'd be like Mille Lacs where people are coming from.
Can't tell me they're keeping all them bass on Tonka that are so freaking hard to catch, you know.
Right.
Fish are getting more pressured, but dude,
Yeah. That's my least favorite lake in the area is Tonka.
mine too.
I just don't do good there. It doesn't set up for me. And
I need to embrace it more. I think it's easy to get a bad attitude about a lake, right? And I'm guilty as anybody, but I need to figure out how to change that. It's just so hard when the bass are biting everywhere else real good. But dude,
yep.
I know you made a trek out here. Do you want to water something for the road?
Oh, I
Pizza?
actually got an energy drink in my truck, so
Oh, right on, dude.
I will drink that on my way home, and about an hour and a half drive, and good to go.
Well, it's an honor to have you out, man.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'd be airing at some point, but I'll let you know when.
Okay.
And yeah, dude. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Arnold Helgerson, 2023 Angler of the Year Championship, Teals Bass Galaxy, checking in, checking out.